Okay, we should be live.
Okay, the Thursday, December 3rd, 2020 virtual special meeting of the Brisbane Planning Commission will now come to order. This virtual meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20, allowing for deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. Consistent with the order, the format provides a safe environment for staff, commissioners, and the public while allowing for open participation. This meeting is being broadcast on Comcast Channel 27 and the city's YouTube channel at youtube.com/BrisbaneCA. The agenda materials may be viewed online at brisbaneca.org. Any written communications have been submitted in advance have already been provided to the Commission. For those who would like to make a comment, a call-in telephone number was provided on the agenda and will also be provided during the meeting. Participants in the Zoom meeting may make their comments through Zoom. Staff, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gomez.
Here.
Commissioner Gooding.
Here.
Commissioner Mackin.
Here.
Commissioner Patel.
Here.
Commissioner Saison.
Here. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
In a second.
I second.
Okay, staff, please take the voice vote.
Commissioner Gomez.
Aye.
Gooding.
Aye.
Mackin.
Aye.
Patel.
Aye.
Saison.
Okay, motion passes. Consent calendar. If there's any member of the public who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar, please call or text or send a chat through Zoom within the next 30 seconds. And while we're waiting, do any of the commissioners, would any of them like to remove an item from the consent calendar? Okay, I see no one.
Okay, that's 30 seconds.
Okay.
We don't have any requests that I can see.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
we'll take a roll call on that.
Commissioner Gomez.
Aye.
Gooding.
Aye.
Mackin.
Aye.
Patel.
Aye.
Saison.
Aye, motion passes. Oral communications. If there is any member of the public who wishes to address the commission about an item not on tonight's agenda, please call or text or send a chat through Zoom within the next minute. And while we're waiting, I will turn to written communications. First, we have the November 2020 publication of Community Update, inviting the public to review and comment on the draft feasibility study remedial action plan for the Southern Pacific Brisbane site. Second, regarding tonight's agenda item B, 1300 Point Road, we received a letter from a neighbor at 126 Sierra expressing concerns as to granting the use permit. Third, regarding tonight's agenda item C, 213 Visitation Avenue, we received 4 letters and or emails in support of the use and design permits and 1 against. And finally, regarding tonight's agenda item E, a use permit for nighttime bakery operations on 470 Valley Drive, we received 12 letters and or emails from residents and 1 from the Altamar Board of Directors in opposition to granting the use permit and 2 in support. Staff, are there any other communications?
No, Madam Chair.
So how are we with oral communications?
Let me share the slide again. Oh, we did not have any calls to the meeting room and no one indicated in the chat.
Yeah, no one in the chat.
Okay, great. Okay, so then we will turn to our next item on the agenda, which is a public hearing on 1300 Sierra Point Road, use permit UP-1-20 and grading review EX-1-20. It's in an R-1 residential district. The applicant is seeking a use permit modifying the parking regulations and grading review to allow 2 non-conforming covered parking spaces within an existing detached garage, approximately 150 cubic yards of soil cut and export, and removal of 6 mature trees to allow construction of a new single-family home. Wilson Yu is the applicant and owner. Staff, may we have the report?
Thank you, Chair. As introduced, this is agenda item for a parking use permit and grading review to allow a new home on Sierra Point Road. This request was originally noticed for the September 10th meeting, but the applicant requested a continuance to address written comments about the garage. It was discussed next at the October 22nd meeting, where the commission continued the item to allow the applicant to evaluate project alternatives. Since then, the applicant has conferred with their architect and engineer and determined that in order to construct a new compliant garage, a considerable amount of topsoil and bedrock would have to be removed. As a result, the applicant decided against altering the project scope and has come back with the same proposal and request. The staff report includes attachments from the applicant and project engineer explaining this decision in more detail. To refresh, the applicant requests a modification to the parking regulations and grading review to allow the construction of the new 3,101 square foot single family home. The parking use permit would alter regulations pertaining to interior garage dimensions to allow an 18 foot 11 inch by 18 foot 11 inch parking area where a 20 foot by 20 foot area is required by code. Grading review is triggered because more than 50 cubic yards of soil will be exported, and this request also includes the removal of 6 mature trees. The 5,000 square foot site is located in the R1 residential zoning district and has a slope of 33%. It is currently developed with a 900 square foot home and the non-conforming 415 square foot garage pictured on the right. The garage is non-conforming due to its 0 foot side setback, and there are 6 mature trees located on the property, one of which is dead. The proposal on the left would demolish the existing home and build a new 3-story single-family home and preserve the detached garage. Setbacks for the new home, lot coverage, floor area ratio, and height are all in compliance with development regulations in the R1. 2 new on-street parking spaces would be provided in the public right-of-way, part of the 4 spaces overall provided by the project, and eliminate the clouded planter box you see in the picture on the right. Staff's analysis and conclusions have not changed since the October 22nd meeting. Existing use is consistent with general plan land use designation, and the use will remain as a single family dwelling. Surrounding uses are similarly residential and primarily single family homes. The project conforms to the development regulations of the R1 zone, and the building permit application will ensure compliance with applicable health and safety codes. At nearly 19 feet by 19 feet, the existing garage can already reasonably accommodate 2 standard size vehicles per Brisbane Municipal Code 17.34.040, which indicates a standard size parking area for 2 vehicles. 2 vehicles shall be 18 feet by 18 feet. Additionally, no laundry or utility facilities will obstruct the parking area, as those facilities are located within the detached home. 2 new on-street parking spaces would be created where none existed before, in compliance with the BMC. And full compliance is unreasonable due to the existing slope and amount of excavation and grading required to expand the garage approximately 1 foot into the hillside, when it currently exceeds Brisbane Municipal Code design standards for 2 standard size vehicles. As with staff's analysis and conclusions regarding the use permit, nothing has changed pertaining to grading review. The home is terraced to fit with the natural topography, and the bulk of the grading is located within the footprint of the proposed home. The only visible retaining wall is 4 feet 6 inches high, and the Brisbane Municipal Code allows up to 6 feet within any setback. And lastly, grading will remove 6 mature trees. The red X's on the image, in compliance with the tree regulations in the Brisbane Municipal Code section 12.12. 1 additional juvenile tree would be removed as well. Only 1 finding for removal is required under that section, but 3 can be made for this project. 1 tree is dead, and remaining trees highlighted in yellow would either be in close proximity to the proposed structure or unreasonably interfere with the economic or other enjoyment of the property. Of note, none of these trees are protected species. Recommended conditions of approval exceed those established in the Brisbane Municipal Code. 7 replacement trees would be required where only 6 are needed under the code, and all replacement trees shall be low water, non-invasive, native preferred, and match the size of the existing trees at maturity, subject to director's approval. This concludes staff presentation with a recommendation of approval of UP-1-20 and EX-1-20 by adoption of the attached resolution.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have a question for staff?
Through the chair,
Yes.
Can I just remind Associate Planner Robbins, we had a request from a neighbor or a nearby resident who had written a comment letter previously who had requested to be read into the record. If you could do that now, please.
I've lost the Zoom here.
Oh, excuse me, through the chair, I think
Yes.
he got disconnected.
Oh, he did. Okay.
While we're waiting for him to come back, I have it, I think. Do you want me to read it, John?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is from Terry O'Connell. As a noticed property owner on the same block of Sierra Point Road as the project at 130 Sierra Point Road, I respectfully request that the variance for parking be denied. The existing garage is in poor condition and the replacement of said garage should be part of the plan and permit process so it benefits our neighborhood with both aesthetic and usability for the new home and neighbors. If the variance for the substandard garage space and substandard on-street parking is granted, the home that will be built will establish the existing garage forever. It will not be long before a new permit is pulled to rebuild the garage that is in a very sorry and unusable state. The old garage does not meet existing setbacks on the front or sides. Historical knowledge show that it has leakage of water during the rainy season and has decayed over its long history. In the many years I've been living on the street, it has never been used for its intended purpose, and I suspect it never shall until it is rehabilitated, rebuilt fully. If the variance is allowed, only the property owner will be able to use the space that blocks the driveway, and most neighbors will be hesitant to use the cutout space. Please look at this project from the perspective of the entire lot and property, not just a house with an existing garage. They do not fit together. Who would plan this piecemeal? Why not do this together and correctly? The plans for the home would include a new garage. The property could easily meet all of the building codes and be able to provide the needed parking for the size and scope of the proposed home. The lot is not small, the slope is not too steep, and the cost is not prohibitive to allow for this project to conform. Please make it do so. Respectfully, Terry O'Connell.
Thank you, Julia. Okay, we have a question from Commissioner Mackin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Colleen, before you do that, can you all hear me?
Yes.
I've lost my video and the Zoom screen doesn't seem to allow me to reopen the video.
Okay. Do you want to leave and come back?
I'll try to do that. I thought I actually tried to close the Zoom out for something.
Did you leave me?
I don't have the screen where I can even leave the meeting, but it's kind of
Okay. I can remove you from the meeting.
Okay, I'll do that.
If you would like, or
yeah, do that, and I'll come back in fresh.
Okay.
My apologies for the technology issues. I don't know when I was dropped out.
We read the letter, so now it's on to questions.
So you were able to get the entire presentation then?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Okay.
And Commissioner Gooding is back in.
There we go. Thank you.
Better? Okay.
Yep. Sorry about that.
Hey, Commissioner Mackin, your question.
Thank you. On the staff report, page 17, at the bottom of the page under other conditions, conditions for approval, we have a notation under letter E Licensed land surveyor shall submit a staking certification letter to the city confirming proposed building location and elevations match submitted site plan and grading plans. Does this address the letter from Mr. John Skier, a neighbor who had concerns about the property line and the fence at the rear of the property?
That's correct.
Okay. Second question, same page, same under other conditions, letter F. Fire sprinklers are required and may be a deferred submittal to the satisfaction of North County Fire Authority. Could you please elaborate why that's in there?
That was their response when this project was sent to them for review. And so that was their kind of standard comment for fire safety.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for staff? Okay, then I see no one. Then I will open up the public hearing, and can we hear from the applicant?
Hi, my name's Amy Adamson, and I'm on the design team for Mr. Yu. Mr. Yu purchased this property and the design and entitlement from Tristan Cunningham, the previous owner. And so I can speak to the history of the design more specifically because Mr. Wu had no part of it. So I thought maybe the easiest thing to do would be just to read the letter that the narrative that I believe Jeremiah has already sent to you all the commissioners. So back in, actually, it was 2017, actually, in October, when we started schematic design phase for the new residence. We consulted and were advised by both staff of the planning department and also land development. We were consulting with them from the beginning. Our goal has always been, as developing the site for Tristan, our goal has always been to minimize the excavation and the soil displacement where possible, so to not have an adverse impact kind of ultimately to the site kind of holistically. And throughout our discussions with engineers, we determined a considerable amount of bedrock and topsoil would need to be excavated to accommodate that new garage, a compliant garage. We were advised at the time, back in 2017, that it was reasonable to apply for a conditional use permit to keep the footprint of the existing non-compliant garage because of its history and it being very close to compliance, only 1 foot 1 inch out of compliance in the rear. The floor plan of the existing garage is not compliant with the current Brisbane planning code. Yet again, it's only 1 foot 1 inch off on the interior, and 2 cars fit, standard automobiles fit well, being that the code for that is 18 feet, and we have 18 feet 11 inches. So in conjunction with the assurances from Mr. Chen, who is the structural engineer of the project, and he addressed a letter to the commission that the existing garage and hillside will hold up under the construction of the proposed home. We propose that the existing garage remain and be improved as required of the conditional use approval. So we are come back and reviewed with, since our last hearing, we went back and again kind of reevaluated this with the structural engineer, and it still does not make sense to have that adverse impact to the lower part of that site in order to bring the garage in compliance by 1 foot 1 inch.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Adamson? Okay, I have a quick question.
I do.
Oh, Commissioner Gomez, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson Saizon. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the design team member's name. I'm sorry.
Amy. Hello, it's
Amy
Amy.
Adamson.
Yeah,
Yes, Ms. Adamson.
Amy. It's Amy Adamson.
Yeah. Good to virtually, and thank you.
Can you
for,
hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to clarify your comments there. You're stating that the structural engineer, who would be the engineer of record for the design, even though this is falling a foot or so short on the back end and is a foot or short as far as width, right, with what the standard code would require, the structural engineer of record does not currently find a need to replace said garage. Did I understand that correctly? Is that?
I'm trying to give you a yes or no answer, but I guess it's not that quite simple. Again, in the interest of, it's always been our goal to, as structural engineers and geotech engineers, to minimize the excavation and the soil displacement where possible. So that's where we started with this, in that the pre-existing garage was so close to compliance that we still maintain that. So we still maintain that the most kind of responsible way to develop the lower part of this site, including the rebuilding the garage to compliance, we still maintain that would mean not excavating the additional foot into the bedrock towards the rear. And then just one kind of side note, one thing that we kind of been talking about with the team since the last hearing was just, for example, like if we did have to go ahead and excavate that back area in order to pick up that 1 foot 11 inches in back, then that would mean more soil. Well, first, it's very noisy to drill through bedrock, and additional trucks moving soil and earth in and out of the neighborhood. And so just more wear and tear on the street and the neighborhood. So again, we still maintain that it's still the most responsible way to kind of develop that lower part of the site on that steep hillside, is to seek this conditional use. And again, I'd like to say that Mr. Wilson is, per the last hearing, and maintains a full commitment to rebuild the garage any way necessary within the existing footprint, to address all the neighbors' issues in particular, but also, to bring the garage up to, a good standard for the neighborhood.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
Okay.
I'm not sure if it did. I apologize.
Okay, Commissioner Gomez, you're done?
It kind of answered it. My takeaways are that based upon your interpretation of the site conditions, the excavation techniques, and additional construction activities that would be required to bring that garage footprint within code compliance, the offset, if you will, is, well, we're only talking about essentially a couple of feet, and we're committing from a structural engineering standpoint to ensure that the integrity of the structure will hold up the earth based upon your engineering expertise. I'm not a structural engineer, so I'm not going to try to pretend to be one. And I think the main concerns that the community expressed in the previous meeting was around the structural integrity of said structure, and just the potential for, any type of event to occur because of the conditions of that structure. And the parking space is kind of the other hang up. But
Well, yeah, we've added, the proposal is to add 2 off-street parking to the neighborhood, which is good. And if the pre-existing non-compliant lack of setback, if you will, these are all conditions of which are, I would say, unique to this street and unique to the topography of the hill. And we've attempted to improve it, improve the condition, meaning bringing two off-street parking to that street. Which was part of meeting the requirements for the project, I might add, too.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Mackin.
no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mackin, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This question is also for Ms. Adamson. If you could, I'm looking at one of the pages included in our staff report, and it's one of the attachments designated A001, and it shows different perspectives of the proposed new dwelling. And on perspective drawings 1 and 2, I'm looking at the current roof of the existing garage. The roof is shown in blue. Do you follow me so far?
I'm not sure what you want to hold it up to the camera and I can see what perspective you're speaking about.
Jeremiah, can you bring that up?
Which sheet are you referring to, Commissioner Mackin?
It's the first one of the attachments with all the blueprints and illustrations. It has color illustrations of the proposed new dwelling. So it has 6 different blocks.
Yeah, I think I have this one. This is the,
There you go.
okay.
So when we look at the first and second illustrations, from what I can see on there, it looks like the roof of the garage, shown in looks like a pale blue, directly abuts what appears to be the retaining wall of the lower level of the proposed new dwelling. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It abuts it. If you look at the actual cross section, technical cross section through it, the pre-existing bedrock, 5-foot bedrock wall and retaining wall, which is the back of the garage, is offset from what will be a new footing for the post and structure of the deck.
Okay.
So they're not on top of each other. The garage is independent.
Right, but are they next to each other?
Yes, that's fair to say.
They are. Okay, so
Just the structure for the underside of the deck, which is a post and footing.
Okay, so I understand then. That is what I was asking. So
Okay.
This would then be a disadvantage to Mr. Wu actually expanding the back portion of the garage to meet the required dimensions for garages by current municipal code.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Since the existing plans for the home have the base of the structure pretty much butting up against where the back of the garage wall is right now, in order to increase the garage size, if there was to be a new garage, this would discourage someone from replacing the garage because it would change, you would have to change the footprint of the house there and that front portion. To go
I
back
would
the
say
1
no to
foot.
that. I'm sorry, say.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that you can tell by the section drawing that's shown here on the shared screen that that is a independent footing for the deck above. It is not the drilled piered foundation, which is farther back.
Right.
Do you see the retaining wall, which is actually under the wall?
Yes. So it would be feasible to actually go back the 1 foot 1 inch required to make a garage to accommodate the current Brisbane code.
Yeah, again, because of if you kind of zoom out again, maybe Jeremiah, you can see the what that the condition there is, deep. There's about 4.5 feet of soil, and then, or not even, like 2.5, and then it's all bedrock. It's mostly bedrock. So again, the excavation and adverse kind of again, it was whenever we do these projects, we're trying to reduce the amount of adverse impact to the bedrock on this particular site, bedrock and soil. So although I guess on paper it kind of looks like, oh, well, why aren't you just excavating back another 2 feet? It's actually, that's a considerable amount of additional excavation and soil displacement.
Right. I think we understand that, but
which is why it was reasonable. It was advised to us that it was reasonable to get a conditional use for the pre-existing size of the garage, since it was only 1 foot 1 inches out of compliance.
Right. So I have an additional question in this regard then. I did visit the site second time today, and I looked at the house to the left of this property. The house to the left of the property has a very similar slope to the backyard from what I can see. So it's just kind of a continuation over. And that particular house actually sets way further into the hillside, easily 10, 20 feet, which made me think this is still actually feasible because we're talking about 1 foot 1 inch compared to a house that had to go into that hillside quite a ways. So I'm just wondering why this is considered such an impediment.
Well, it's not that it's an impediment. It's just that there's 150 cubic yards of soil displacement and off-haul required to build the building, period. And so again, because we were only 1 foot 1 inch off away from compliance in the rear, that again, like in the interest of doing, kind of responsible design, we always try to reduce the adverse impact of excavation holistically to the site. So,
it is possible.
Maintain that. Well, of course
it's possible.
Of course, it's possible.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Mackin. So Ms. Adamson, so I do want to follow up on that. So when you had said that it would be adverse to rebuild or, to do more excavation to rebuild this garage, you weren't really saying that it would be harmful to the entire, the lot itself, the property itself. You were just saying it's just a little bit more work, and it's a lot. It's not that it's more work. It's that it's more excavation and displacement of the hill. Okay.
Yeah.
But is that necessarily dangerous to do that?
No, it's construction, but again, like when we design on steep slopes, especially on bedrock, it's always the most responsible thing to design is to reduce the amount of excavation and soil displacement, period. So again, because the garage was only 1 foot 1 inches out of compliance, and it's possible that when this garage was permitted back when San Mateo was the jurisdiction, it's possible that it was compliant, that 18 feet 11 inches was a compliant garage. And it's possible that it was located where it was because of the 6 feet of bedrock that you'd have to cut to pick up that 1 foot 1 inch. So again, this was really just, it was always been in the interest of trying to reduce the excavation to that in that front area.
So did you or the engineer, Mr. Chen, examine the garage to kind of, determine its soundness, its integrity?
Yeah, Mr. Chen has definitely, looked at the existing garage, and it's not in structural failure, but it obviously is in some disrepair, and it certainly will be rebuilt and improved, immeasurably, theoretically within the existing footprint, if approved.
Does anyone else have questions for Ms. Adamson?
I have a question. It's just more theoretical. You are going to be removing soil and doing excavation for the building, is that right?
Yeah, it's about, right now it's estimated about at 150 cubic yards. It could be less. That's our, the soil engineer's kind of paper estimate right now. It could be less.
Can you just walk us through the reasoning and your analysis of like when you think it's okay to remove soil and excavate, for example, for increasing the size of the building, but not so much for the garage? Like, what's the analysis that goes through it?
I guess, again, like whenever we just try to holistically reduce the amount of excavation, period. And when you build on a steep slope like this, you have to, terrace it to some extent, to kind of oversimplify it and make, floors and terraces, if you will. And that's entirely because of the soil condition and of having, when you hit bedrock, which is about 3.5 to 4 feet, you hit bedrock. So in order to build, anything on that site, you have no choice but to excavate in order to get in, the drilled piers required to build on that hill. But again, like, we're just always trying to reduce the overall excavation of the site, period. So by the time, you get down to that garage, I still strongly believe that it would be best to not excavate, just to give you an idea, just to pick up like just 1.5 feet in the rear, we would have to excavate 4 to 5 feet, to put in a new foundation, in order to pick up that 1.5 feet. So you wouldn't just be excavating 1.5 feet, you'd be excavating like a good 4 or 5 feet back to put in a new retaining wall to retain back 6 feet plus of bedrock and soil. So the footing behind it, which is independent and holds up just the deck above it, it's so that's no excavation, is required for that footing. The major footing, which is the perimeter wall of the house, that's 8 feet farther back. And the excavation for that, what's required for that is going to be doing drilled piers along the front of that whole wall. which is a little different than when you're with the garage situation, whereas that we wouldn't be drilling piers, we'd literally have to excavate the whole back of the hill in order, the full 6 feet. Jeremiah, maybe you go to that cross section again. You can see how much we'd have to pull out to pick up 1.5 feet in the rear. And again, so because it was such a small amount of space that we had to pick up, we thought that it was very reasonable to ask for a special permission for the non-compliant size. You see that? So you can see that that footing that is holding up just the porch, if you will, it doesn't require any excavation. But if we were to move that back wall of the garage back, we'd have to excavate 4 to 5 feet of all, deep. So that we'd have to excavate 4 or 5 feet back and a good 10 feet vertically. So that's a big cut. That's a really big cut for, to pick up 1 foot, 1 inch of floor area for a garage.
So my question more is, so when you're doing a design like this, you could just remodel the current existing residence there and not cut into any of at one end of the project, you could not excavate anything and just remodel the house that's there. And on the other end, you have a project that is going to increase the footprint of this house or of the residents on that particular property. And you've made a determination that increasing the footprint of that house is going to remove and lead to the excavation of a certain amount of soil and the disruption of the bedrock. So at what point, what is your balancing decision where you're saying, okay, well, this house is X big, and so we're gonna stop excavating and limit the size to a certain size?
Well, again, it's not so much the size of the house, it's where you put the foundation. So again, looking at this section, you can see that the largest, the main part of the footprint is, you can kind of zoom over maybe, Jeremiah. Yeah, you can see that the thing was, we built in with a series of levels or terraces, if you will, in the interest, again, to reduce excavation.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm not asking the right
question, but
I'm not answering the right question. So my question is, you could just remodel the house that's there and not excavate anything. Is that possible?
That's possible, but not what we were hired to do.
No, that makes sense. I understand that wasn't what you were hired to do, but you could do that and not excavate anything, right?
Yes, you could.
Possible as a project.
Existing house, if you chose. Yes, I would assume that's true.
But you were hired to design this project, and in that design, you found it acceptable to excavate a certain amount of the earth on that particular slope, this particular property, right? At what point, because you've said several times now that it doesn't make sense. You've used the words, it doesn't make sense, that there's going to be noise, trucks. There's a lot of reasons why you don't want to add that extra foot. But at some point you made a decision that you were going to cut bedrock and soil out of that side of that hill. So at what point did you make the decision, well, this is enough, we're not going to do the actual foot for the garage?
I would argue at the very beginning of the project, because, back in 2017, when we started designing it and, reviewing the design with the planning department and the land and the public works department, we knew that this pre-existing non-compliant garage was only out of compliance by 1 foot and 1 inch. And it was in the interest of trying to just reduce the overall excavation of the entire site holistically. We thought it was reasonable to ask for a conditional use permit for the pre-existing non-compliant garage. So I would say from the beginning, that was, the strategy.
So there was never actually a contemplation of putting the garage into a design that would conform to the current standards, the building standards.
No, there was. That's what I'm saying, is that we knew that you can see by this section that in order to pick up that 1.5 feet, you could see that we had how much we had to excavate at that lower level. You know, so again, like, because it was only off by 1 foot 1 inch, that seemed like a really good place to not excavate. To reduce the overall amount of excavation soil holistically for the whole site.
I mean, that just goes back to my original question. If you wanted to reduce holistically the amount of excavation, you could have just made the building way smaller and reduced the excavation, right? So at some point there was a decision made as to how big of a building to make and how much of the soil to take out.
In terms of the size of the footprint of the building, that was programmatically decided by the client, you know, to be I think a 4-bedroom family residence with a bedroom for her mother. So that determined the square footage and size of the house was Tristan's program for the house itself.
Thank you.
So Ms. Adamson, just one quick follow-up question. Sure. So if Mr. Yu had wanted a new, nice, large garage, that's something that you could have accommodated as well. I mean, you wouldn't have said, oh no, it's not wise to dig further into this bedrock. I mean, if that's what he wanted, you could have found a way to do that, correct?
Yes. It's if to build the garage compliant, we'd have to excavate another 5 feet back into the bedrock.
Right. So that's something that if he had wanted that, you could have fulfilled his wishes and do that.
Yes, I would say that's true. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Yu.
Okay, so on the last hearing, so I promised the neighbors, hey, I would like to rebuild a new garage, so make everyone satisfied. But I really don't know the application. And then I find out after I talked to the architect, the engineer, and Jeremiah, and I realized that is a huge amount of work. Okay, so maybe you can take a look at this one. So this is the old retaining wall right here. So we make 1 feet. Yes, it looks like just very little. But remember, once you tear this down, you have to dig this one all the way back. I mean, even like a 4 feet or 5 feet, because you need the drain right here, and the drain right need to be all the way down to the hill, lower than the retaining wall. And not only on the back, it's also on the side. You have to move to the right side. So on the other side, you have to dig another 4 feet on the right side and on the back. Like every side, you need to on the right side, not only 4 feet. To move 4 feet, but you need another 1 or 2 feet for the retaining wall and for the what we call the French pipe, because for the water to drain to outside. So that means on the right side, we have to dig 5 feet something, and on the back we have to dig a 4 feet something. And the bad thing is when I do the construction, so once you move this retaining wall to the back, you see it hit the footing, the original footing right here. So these two retaining walls gonna combine together, so that to make a 13 to 14 foot high.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That means we had to trigger the whole design again. It already been 4 years to this point right now. And then that means we had to go back to everything original again. So we had probably spent another year or something just for this one. And another thing is once you hit the right side, that means you will hit the stair on the right side. We have to redesign it. And same thing, when you hit the back 4 feet, the whole thing had to be redesigned. The soil engineer had to do the calculation again, everything. I have no idea of this on the first time I'm hearing. And then when I talk to everybody, I say, oh my God, they're going to be taking another 1 or 2 years just to do this one. I promise I will make this garage nice and like a new, you know, and even you step back 1 feet or 4 feet to the right, it not really change the street parking actually. And I also promised the neighbor on the left-hand side, because they tell me there lots of water go to their side. I say, no, don't worry, because I will, on the existing back retaining wall, I'm gonna dig it down just maybe 1 feet to put so the water gonna be connect to the right side to connect with the new, what we call the drain pipe to go out. So no water will go to the that side. And this address their concern. And also that way will be, no more water will go to the street. Like if I do something like that. But once we rebuild the garage, I just knew that after I talked to everybody, I had to move to right 4 feet. And on the back, I had to move like a 4 feet, thick 4 feet on the back rock. And that means two retaining wall going to be combined together, going to be a huge retaining wall. So that means that retaining wall had to make it thicker again. So the soil engineer had to, and engineer had to redesign everything.
Right.
So
Yeah. And I might just add about that too, again, is that the cut, like Jeremiah mentioned in his introduction about how we don't have any retaining walls that exceed, what was it, 6 feet, I think. But again, this is if just that to make the cut to increase it 1 foot 1 inch in the garage, that's a horizontal cut that's going to be at least 4 to 6 feet, and then a vertical cut that is well exceeds 6 feet. So that would be the deepest cut of the whole site, you know. And again, it's to avoid that kind of displacement is good engineering.
Yeah, if this question raised on the first beginning when we apply for the permit, yeah, I may do that, because at that time we didn't do anything yet. But right now we go like take 4 years to this point right now. So it looks like we have to at least like 20-30% redesign everything. I don't know how long it take, you know, like I can say, sorry, Amy's busy, soil engineer's busy. Every time when we do the revision, it take me like 2 or 3 months, and then go to the city, maybe they have comment and go back again. Just one little revision, it will take half a year. You don't know how difficult it is like that. So from the day I purchased this property to right now is more than 1 year something, just for this grading permits. It actually hold up everything, actually. I don't know, on the first time, I'm thinking just, oh, very easy on the same location, the same size. It's no problem, I just do it. But I realized it's not. It's lots of work. I had to like almost so many things I had to design from the beginning again. You have to redesign the stair, you have to redesign the retaining wall, because two retaining wall kind of combine together it's at least 14 feet high, because
yeah, at least again, yeah, like all the the retaining wall, even in the far back is
like a 4 feet on the top. If once you do that, you increase the retaining wall from 4 feet to 14 feet, and probably they need to do the drilling pier. Once drilling the pier, that means I had to bring the big machine to drill the pier, just hold that 13 feet high retaining wall. That's really a big impact for the whole project. Yes,
it's a big impact to the whole neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay, thank you both. Does anybody have any more questions for Ms. Adams or Mr. Yu? Okay, thank you. Now we'll take public comments. Jeremiah or Julia, do we have people waiting?
I don't see anyone in the chat.
Michelle Salmon just indicated she'd like to comment.
I would like to comment. Yes. I actually have quite a few comments. First of all, you keep saying 1.1 inch out of compliant, but the lack of compliance goes a great deal further than that. This existing garage that was built eons and eons ago is 3 feet into the setback, side setback, and it comes all the way up to the property line in the front, which is no longer allowed. It should be set back from the property line on the city property as well. So to say that it's just 1 foot 1 inch is not correct. And you keep saying that, and that is not the only reason it's not compliant. It's not compliant because it is on the setback, the side setback, and it's on the front setback. And you keep throwing the planning staff under the bus from whatever someone might have said in 2017 that you decided to design around a non-compliant garage, thinking that later on you were going to have it a variance to allow this non-conforming garage to continue to exist. And you have to ask yourself why you would have to put in all the drain rock and a proper retaining wall and French drains if you and how are you going to solve the problem with the water? I find this really ludicrous because you are going to build a 3,100 square foot house on an existing lot, and you expect to just keep the same old garage. This is a big project, and when it's completed, it'll sell for $2.5 million. And yet you want to cheap out and you want to rebuild on the existing footprint, which basically is a footprint you're not allowed to build on. And so it's really unfair. And you're creating an unsafe condition by not doing the work that you need to do to put in a proper retaining wall to hold that size house on that hill. And you're cutting corners and saying, oh, but this is the safe and reliable thing to do. This is the most responsible thing to do, period. The most responsible thing to do is to build it properly the way that you should, the way that they had to do at 110 Sierra Point Road and the way they had to do at 126 Sierra Point Road. You know, to properly drain the water, to put in a retaining wall that will actually hold the house in an earthquake, or when the water table changes because you've changed the land. I mean, and you say, why did they build that garage there? They didn't have a permit to build that garage when they built that garage. And they were originally going to probably split the lot into two 25-foot lots and build 2 houses. But that pile of dirt that's next to the garage that's in the public right of way, that was piled there by a previous owner when he illegally excavated a basement under the original house that wasn't there before. And I know this because I've lived here all of my life and I saw it happen. And that was supposed to be removed within a year or 2 years after they first bought the property back in 2003 or whatever it was, 2005 or something. And instead it's still there now in 2020. And you people are acting like it's a big deal that you're going to remove this pile of dirt that was supposed to be removed 15 years ago. And so I'm really annoyed. And I cannot believe the city staff would direct you to spend all this money on non-compliant plans in 2017, and that you've been hanging your hat on that ever since. It's just wrong. And if you're going to build a 3,100 square foot house, you need to do it right. And you need to do it compliant. We already have several parking issues on this street that were grandfathered in long before you and I were born. Okay. And definitely long before you were born. But that's the situation, and you're just exacerbating it by continuing that. The people next door to you to the left of that house, I mean, are you doing anything to build a retaining wall to keep the dirt from slumping onto their property when you do this excavation? Because that's what happened down the street when they excavated for a house, and that's still under litigation, what, 25, 30 years later, because they didn't do it right. And so I think you really do need to do it right if you're going to do that. And that's what was promised. And I'm sorry you've gone to a lot of work and hung your hat on a lot of effort that was misguided at the beginning. The plans should have been compliant from the very beginning and not half-assed like this. It's just wrong. And it affects the entire neighborhood, and it sets a precedent for everything else that's going on. with overbuilding. And what's to say you're not going to have an ADU or create a secondary unit in a size home that big, and there'll be even more parking problems. But it's not just about the parking. It really is about the safety involved. So that's how I feel. And I feel it is, you keep saying responsible, the most responsible thing, period. No, the most responsible thing is to build it properly with a proper retaining wall, proper drainage, and safe. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Jeremiah, do we have anyone else waiting in the wings?
Yes, we have YY Lee would like to comment.
Yes, hi. And I live next door, and first of all, I just want to say, yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for Wilson Yu, who's seems like he wants to, build something and get his family in there, and I hope that happens in a good way, and that we can have a good relationship. I also have concerns about the process, right, as it's going on, and I hope to engage with that. I just want to say that it really there seem to be separate issues of the footprint, which has to do with two things. One is like the size of the garage, which is close, and the amount of parking, and then the actual structure and the soundness of the structure itself, and the soundness of that structure for everything that sits behind it. And I am no expert, but things like French drains and proper retaining walls sound like a very, very good idea. We have some pumps and French drains and everything in our house, and the water is running. I apologize, my dog is barking. Nobody's here to control her. And it just seems like when I hear, the existing garage will be improved, I have a real, just a longer term safety concern, right? Just in terms of soundness, and it does impact so I would just ask the commission to really carefully consider those kind of soundness and safety concerns in terms of, what's expected from, whatever the footprint that is approved ends up being, right? There's the footprint, but then there's the expectation of the correctness of the build for that first level of that structure. And so that's my main comment, just having a very, very long-term, also not as long as Michelle, but a very long-term interest in the community in that particular street.
Okay, thank you. Jeremiah, do you have anyone else?
There's no one else that has commented about or messaged me about commenting.
Okay, then we'll
Yes,
do the
something?
30-second. Oh, yes, Mr. Yu.
Yeah, I would really like to address all the neighbors' concern, but just imagine it right now when the house is built on like a step, so it's very stable. Once you dig 4 or 5 feet in, and as Michelle said, they need to another 4 feet to set back from the front. That means 8 feet. So that means the retaining wall going to increase to 18 feet high. There you will need to bring the big machine to drill all the pier to hold this big monster retaining wall. It can be make lots of sounds and lots of dirt have to tear out. So I don't know. That's benefit because this grading permit, right? So what the purpose is try to, and also even we set back like that way, it didn't create any new parking because it is in front of a driveway, so it's not increase any parking for the neighbor as well. So it's not benefit for anything. That's my point. So yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yu. Okay, Jeremiah, can we do a 30-second time clock to see if anybody else wants to call in here?
Sure. And 30 seconds has elapsed.
Okay, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, can we do a roll call?
Commissioner Gomez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Oh, he's
Commissioner
muted.
Gooding, still muted. Doug, you can, I'll move on. Commissioner Mackin,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel, Commissioner
votes aye.
Patel,
Aye. Aye.
and Commissioner Gooding was an aye. Commissioner Sayasan.
Aye, okay, motion passes. Okay, let's discuss. Who would like to start? Commissioner, no, did I see Commissioner Mackin's hand raised? Commissioner Mackin, why don't you start?
Okay, thank you. Listening to all the comments, we listened to some the last time. We're back to decision night. And I think it's an important time to recognize that we've looked at the size of the garage and it's only out of compliance by a small amount. But I think we can't lose sight of overall perspective. If this was a vacant lot and you were building a brand new home and a garage, everything would have to be up to code. Essentially, this is like that because we've all heard the term of things being grandfathered in. Why is this being brought to us? This garage cannot be grandfathered in. So the way I look at it, whatever hardship there is in replacing the garage, we have a couple very important considerations. When things are no longer grandfathered in, it's usually where a property owner is required to bring things up to code, to make it whole. Why do we do that? Because we recognize that at a certain point, things out of compliance need to change. Why? Because we had codes enacted that said, this needs to be up to date because it is a life safety issue and it also ensures the integrity of the property, not just for the present property owner, but for a future property owner. And we have an obligation to ensure that we did our due diligence. So the fact is we have a garage that has no side setback, number one. It's been that way. That can be corrected. If I was the neighbor next door, I'd like to see that corrected. This is an opportunity. Why would we not insist on everything being brought up to code, parking and the garage? This is a whole new building project. Let's not call it anything else. That's what it is. And I think Commissioner Patel, you made some very good points. I understood what you were trying to say is that there were choices in this. And if we're going to do so much excavation, there could have been excavation allowed for a garage, but it wasn't done. Are we obligated then to approve a 90-year-old garage to be fixed up, which is leaking in the back wall, leaking onto the neighbor's property, doesn't have the proper setbacks? Personally, I say no. I think this needs to be made whole. It needs to be brought up to code. It's a new project. Let's make it all a new project. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Mackin. Who would like to go next? Okay, Commissioner Gooding.
I have no comments to add beyond that of Commissioner Mackin. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gomez, would you like to say anything?
Commissioner, Chairperson Saizan?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Commissioner Gomez, can you hear us?
Oh, are you there? Yeah, I was having an
Yes.
audio problem.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I guess how do I articulate this? The issue I'm finding with this project and maybe I don't have all of the facts in front of me, is that it does appear that the design, right, the architectural project many years prior, and that this property recently changed ownership with said plans, and the design team had been working with the city to try and make the project right within these parameters that we've identified wouldn't be appropriate if this was just bare land, right? And I'm hung up on the fact, on that very fact pattern, right, where I have someone who's trying to do a project, who's been working with the city, and due to this situation where we're basically not looking at the project favorably thus far, has been the general conversation, right? Whether it's the perspective from the community or the analysis that we're looking to employ right now, through, and I think that for me is where I find the biggest concern.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gomez. Commissioner Patel?
So I would have to agree with everything that Commissioner Mackin said regarding the fact that there is a general plan in place, and there's rules associated with that general plan on how things should be built and what the side setbacks should be. And this is an entirely new project. That house that's on that property is going to be torn down. There's going to be land excavated from this particular plot. The design from the very beginning just assumed that there would be a variance, it seems, and didn't design this particular construction project to be compliant with the current code, which they shouldn't have done. They should have designed it to be compliant. And then if there was some unique or aspect of the construction that required a variance, asked for it. But if the entire project was basically designed with a variance in mind to potentially just maybe cut down costs, or I don't know why they would do it that way. I do not agree that it does not make sense to make the garage compliant, which is, I think, something that has been said several times today. I don't agree that there's going to be any significant increase in noise or trucks. There's going to be significant construction on this particular plot for a long time while this building is being built. And I don't understand this sort of reduced adverse impact on the bedrock and soil argument when there's going to be significant impact on the bedrock and soil just to build a building that they want, which is a 4-bedroom house. I think they should build their 4-bedroom house. I think they should do it based on the codes that are in place right now, that they should build that building with the appropriate setbacks, both on the front property and the side property. And they should build it like Commissioner Mackin said, it's a new construction project based on the current construction zoning codes and codes that are in place.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Patel. So I would just add and echo what my fellow commissioners have said is, let's start off with the code. I mean, why do we have an updated code? It's because we've acknowledged that there's a better way and a safer way to do something. So, we pass the code and this is how things should be done. And we understand existing homes, we're not going to impose those new requirements on existing homes. But if you're going to build, essentially, you're building a new home, then I think it's reasonable to expect that then you become compliant with the new codes. Because how are we ever going to make things better? I mean, the residents on Sierra Point Road, have a known parking issue. I mean, I'm sure that's an issue for pretty much all of Brisbane. So, when we have a situation where, okay, someone wants to improve their property, if we don't then require them to then, get updated on the code and make their property better and safer, then it's never going to be better for anyone in the city. so it's slowly, with Mr. Yu's home, then maybe another neighbor's home and whatnot, things progressively get better. But it won't if we keep allowing these exemptions. So that's one. Now, regarding the feasibility issue, I would understand Mr. Yu if he just wanted to add, a small addition to his current house. And, to make him rebuild an entire new garage to become compliant, that might not be reasonable. But he is increasing the footprint of his home over 3 times. So if you're going to do something that drastic, I don't think it's, requiring too much of you or expecting too much of you to also become fully compliant in terms of your garage. You're going to build a beautiful home that you want to live in for years. Why not make it just perfect as you can? So, so that, you want a home that you can truly love and feel good about. So those are really, my 2 points. And it's just, again, I think the main thing is I don't want to set a precedent where, we allow this to go through. And then the next applicant comes and says to us, well, you allowed it for that applicant. I want the same consideration. And then the next person wants the same thing. And it just, things never change, things never get better. So for all those reasons, I'm inclined to decline the applicant's request as well. So does anyone else have any more comments on this before we take a vote? Okay, no one? Okay, then can I have a motion? Commissioner Patel, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I can make the motion. Let me just pull up really quickly the permit number.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to deny UP-1-20.
Okay, and can I have a second?
Second.
Through the chair,
Yes.
sorry, there's 2 permits as part of this application. I just wanted to put that out there. Jeremiah or John, if you want to elaborate. There's a grading
Yeah, there's
permit
also grading.
as well.
Yes. So I'm assuming Commissioner Patel also meant the grading review EX-1-20.
Do we have to do those together or separately? Is it better to do it together or separately?
I guess we can just do it in conjunction.
If you're inclined to deny both, you can do them together. If you're thinking of having a different course of action, then you could act separately.
Okay, so I don't necessarily have a problem with the grading review permit as it stands, just for the removal of the soil as it relates to the construction project, but as it's tied to, I feel like it's directly tied to UP-1-20 because without complying with UP, without getting the variance, then the grading permit will have to be a different grading permit. So based on that fact, I would say I would make a motion to deny UP-1-20 and the grading review EX-1-20.
And I'll still second it.
Okay, and can we take a vote on that?
Commissioner Gomez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
Aye, the motion passes. The project has been denied. Okay, we will now turn to,
Through the chair,
You have to,
would you read the
Yes.
appeals?
oh, I was going to do that after the end, after everything's done. I was going to read can I do that, John, or do I have to do it after each item?
I would think in this case, you might want to just do it now as well,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Okay, let me, okay. Anyone may appeal the action of the Planning Commission to the City Council, except where specified otherwise. Appeal shall be filed with the city clerk not later than 15 calendar days following the Planning Commission's decision. Exceptions to the 15-day filing period include the following. Appeals shall be filed with the city clerk within 6 calendar days of the Planning Commission's actions for use permits and variances and 10 calendar days for tentative maps and advertising sign applications. Okay, so next item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding 213 Visitation Avenue, use permit UP-4-20 and design permit DP-2-20. It's an NCRO-2 neighborhood commercial district, downtown Brisbane. The applicant seeks a design permit and use permit for a new 6,516 square foot, 3-story mixed-use building with 4 dwelling units, a 4-car parking garage, and a 283 square foot ground floor commercial storefront. Mark Topicher is the applicant and Arcus Housing LLC is the owner. Staff, may we have the report?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Commission. So the request before you tonight is for approval of a design permit and use permit to allow construction of a new 3-story mixed-use building at 213 Visitation Ave. The design permit includes approval of the 35-foot height limit, as well as reduced area for the required ground floor storefront, as well as the required outdoor recreation or passive or active recreation areas for a condominium residential dwelling. The use permit includes the use itself for 4 dwelling units above the ground floor storefront, as well as modifications to the parking requirements. So both in the number of spaces provided for proposed or fiber required, as well as the design of the spaces, which will be in mechanical lifts and will be compact in regards to their width. And I'll also note this is intended to be a condominium development, which requires approval of a tentative parcel map or map waiver. The applicant has deferred those applications pending the Commission's action on the permits tonight. So the existing property is just over 2,700 square feet in area. It's on the east side of Visitation, just south of Monterey Street. There's an existing 900 square foot single family home on the property, along with a curb cut and a driveway. There's no covered parking on the site. The single family home is a non-conforming use in this district. Even though there are many single family homes on Visitation, they're non-conforming, so they cannot be expanded. They may only be repaired to retain their usability and ensure health and safety conditions are being met. And currently the structure is in poor condition. Adjacent to this property, there are 2 commercial lots on either side on Visitation, and then it abuts a single family dwelling to the rear at 349 Monterey, which is zoned, it's in the zoning district, the R2 residential district. Here's a vicinity map from above. You can see the property outlined in blue, with the commercial lots at 201 Visitation and 245 to 249 Visitation to the north and south, and 349 Monterey to the east. And here's some photos of the vicinity. So you can see again the commercial lots on either side of the property and the existing single family home. The shots on the left and in the middle were taken from Monterey Street. So this is looking from Monterey, roughly in front of 349 Monterey, over the backyard of the subject property. You can just see the corner of the existing building there in the left-hand corner. And then on the right is looking down the 200 block of Visitation from Midtown Market. And here's some photos of development in the vicinity. So within a block radius, you have a range from 1-story buildings to 3-story buildings. So you can see that photo in the middle is a duplex on Monterey Street. And then we have some multifamily buildings as well on Visitation Avenue across the street. And I'm hearing a little feedback. I don't know if someone's not muting themselves, but if you could mute yourself, please. And then journeying further down and up Visitation. So just to give you some context, the photo on the right from Google is 395 Visitation, which is 3 stories over parking. And then on the top left is 34 Visitation down the street, which is 2 stories above, 2 residential above parking. And then in the lower left, we have 1 San Bruno, 23 San Bruno, and 35 San Bruno. So the middle lot is 23 San Bruno. That's been approved for a 3-story mixed use development with 4 residential units. So those would be also above parking. Okay, so in terms of the project proposal, so 4 units on this lot results in a density of about 64 dwelling units per acre. Again, the building would be 35 feet tall, which is permitted through approval of a design permit by the commission. It would be the tallest on this block, but it would be in similar scale to other structures throughout the district, as we just saw in the photos. The design includes articulation at the 2nd and 3rd stories, as well as a light well on the north side. The design is contemporary. There's pedestrian level details and articulation. The color palette is a neutral blend of grays and whites with some black accents. And the lower level features, in addition to the access doors for the garage, storefront, and residence, it also has wraparound windows for the commercial space and accent transom windows. So in terms of parking and site circulation, this is the ground floor plan. So you can see here from the garage, from the driveway at the northern side of the site, leading into the garage. So the proposal includes 4 parking spaces, but they would be accommodated in mechanical lifts. So within a 2-car footprint. The cars would be independently accessible. So they're proposing excavating a pit, basically, to allow for the lifts to fully go subterranean in order to allow the top level cars to come down to grade. The applicant's plans include turning radius diagrams for all 4 spaces that demonstrate how each car can make a 3-point turn in order to exit headfirst onto Visitation, which is required. They're also proposing a pedestrian warning system to be mounted at the exterior of the garage to warn pedestrians when cars are exiting. So as you can see here, the green arrow shows, excuse me, the green arrow shows the entry to the residential units. So this would be at the south side of the property. The stairway in the middle of the building would allow access upstairs to units A and B. And then if you continue to the rear, there's also ground floor access to Unit A. That's required by ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act. You can also see in purple, I've circled the permanent secure bike storage lockers, which would be accessible to both, to all units on the property. And then finally, the commercial space there. And finally, the rear yard, which would be shared for all units and would feature patio, landscaping, as well as bike racks. Oh, and I should say the improvements in the public right-of-way would include relocation of the 10-foot driveway. So the existing driveway is about 10 feet approximately. It would not be expanded in size. It would be shifted slightly south to align with the property line. It doesn't currently. The existing on-street parking would be able to be retained, and the existing street tree in front of the property would be retained as well. So looking at the second floor, again, the access would be provided via that common stairway. There's a light well, as I mentioned, on the north side. You can see that here in plan view. So not only does that serve a functional or design purpose to provide light and also break up the massing of the building, but it also adds some additional outdoor space for the residents. There will be a private deck for the unit here in front, Unit B. And Unit B is the unit that would be deeded, sold with the storefront unit on the ground floor. They're intended to be live work spaces. And going up to the third floor, again, I should mention the proposal is for 2 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units. So up at the 3rd floor, you can see the step back at the street level by providing the roof deck for Unit D. You can see the light well again, where it continues up to the 3rd story. And then at the rear, you can see a roof deck for Unit C. So not only does that provide private open space, but there's also about a 2 feet offset between the north and south segments of the building that provides some articulation of the rear building wall. So in order to approve a use permit, the commission has to make 2 findings for any use permit. The first is that the use is consistent with the general plan and with adjacent uses and structures. So in this case, the mixed use is consistent with the neighborhood commercial retail office land use designation. It's also consistent with the existing pattern of commercial, residential, and mixed use development in the NCR02 district. So though most structures in the district and along Visitation are 1 to 2 stories in height, multifamily and mixed use developments do feature a range of building scales, and that was kind of illustrated in the photos I displayed earlier, from 1 to 4 stories. So at 35 feet and 3 stories, the structure would be the tallest on the 200 block of Visitation, and it would be about 2 stories taller than 1 to 2 stories taller than adjacent development. So in addition to the existing structures in the district I referenced that are of similar scale, the multifamily densities in this district range from 21 to 87 dwelling units per acre. So again, the proposed project density is 64 dwelling units per acre, falling roughly in the middle of that range. And beyond the land use perspective, the project is consistent with our housing element and circulation element policies that encourage mixed use infill residential development that's transit oriented to achieve our ultimate goal of helping new development reduce the vehicle miles traveled associated with the residents living there. The property is a half mile or less away from the shuttle stops for Caltrain and BART, as well as regional bus routes on Bayshore. The second finding is that the use would not be injurious or have detrimental effects on the neighborhood or the public at large. So in this case, the project would convert a currently non-conforming use on the property to a conforming use that fits the mixed use character of the NCR02 district. The new structure would introduce shadowing that doesn't currently exist to adjacent properties to the south and to the east. This would be limited to the late afternoon in winter and mid-afternoon in summer. And this shadowing would be caused by any new development of over 1 story. It's not necessarily tied to the 35-foot building height. Access to air for adjacent properties and the subject property will be preserved due to the design incorporating both the light well, as well as the fact that adjacent development is not residential other than the single family home to the rear. There'll be about 20 feet of distance in between the single family dwelling and the rear building wall of this project. And finally, related to pedestrian safety, the city engineer again will require a pedestrian warning system to make sure that there are no safety conflicts with cars exiting the property and pedestrians on the street. Related to the parking use permit, the commission must find that strict enforcement of the specified regulation would not be required by either present or anticipated future traffic volume or traffic circulation on the site. So in this case, the proposed design of the garage and its reliance on mechanical lifts inherently restricts its use for other purposes. They've also provided dedicated storage areas within closets that's required by the condominium regulations for each dwelling. So given the fact that its physical design basically limits it to the parking of cars, unlike potentially single family dwellings, for example, and given the fact that the proposed development is as dense as reasonably feasible for the site, we don't anticipate that particularly strict enforcement would be required to make sure the garage was used for parking, and we don't expect that parking demand would intensify. The second finding for parking is that the use permit would not intensify the existing shortage of on-street parking. There is a shortage of on-street parking in central Brisbane. This is not a secret. Many residents and businesses attest to this. It's primarily due to the lack of on-site parking of developed lots and the limited physical space for street parking due to our narrow road widths. In this case, granting the use permit to allow 4 parking spaces on site, 1 per unit, where 5 are required, in proximity to public transit and with secured long-term bicycle storage, would not demonstrably intensify the existing shortage of on-street parking in the vicinity of the project. And it's consistent with circulation element policies to preserve on-street parking and encourage alternative transportation modes. Finally, the last finding for parking is that full compliance with parking requirements is not reasonably feasible due to existing structural or site complaints or constraints. In this case, the narrow lot width in conjunction with the required ground floor storefront, the dwelling unit storage areas, garbage and recycling areas, and ADA access requirements significantly constrict the footprint of off-street parking on the property. The modification request to allow a compact width for the parking spaces is also comes from structural constraints due to the design of the mechanical lifts. And just a note on compact, we define compact spaces as being 8 feet wide. So at 8.5 feet, it's kind of right in between compact and standard, and it would have a standard depth. And for the design permit, there are many findings for the design permit. We group them into different categories. The first relating to neighborhood compatibility. These are primarily addressed in the use permit findings, so I won't belabor them here. The next set of findings addresses consistency with the streetscape and pedestrian scale. So in this case, the proposed design uses voids in the ground floor walls. So both at the driveway entry, the driveway door itself is set back pretty far from the street, as well as the residential entry, and second and third story setbacks to respect the 1 to 2 story scale of the neighborhood. This brings the upper levels of the building away from the street. They also have incorporated different textures and materials at eye level, along with storefront windows and landscaping to engage pedestrians. And as it relates to the building form and details, these findings address the quality and sensitivity of the building's form and architectural details in the context of the site and adjacent development. So again, the contemporary architectural design is attractive. The articulation that's provided at all levels of the structure help to break up the massing of the building when seen from the street. The ground floor in particular has repetitive elements that you'll see elsewhere along storefront commercial properties on Visitation, like the transom windows and detailing and landscaping. So all of the, and as well as the neutral color palette is, earth tone based, doesn't particularly draw the eye. So all these design choices work together to reduce the perceived bulk and mass of the building as seen from both Visitation and Monterey. And then the last set of findings relates to provision of outdoor spaces and landscaping. So in this case, again, the small size of the lot and all of the amenities that have to be provided in order to meet the development standards really restrict the amount of landscaped area that can be provided. So the proposed landscaping in the rear yard and then the accent landscaping in the front are the maximum feasible for the site, given all of the other development standards they need to comply with. And I'll also again note that they're requesting a reduction in the passive or active recreation areas from 400 square feet per unit to 184 square feet per unit. In this case, each unit does have outdoor areas, whether it's a private deck or the shared rear yard, which is just under 300 square feet. But the property is in walking distance to many of the city's outdoor recreational areas, as well as the community garden. So given the combination of the constraints on the property, as well as its proximity to public outdoor amenities, the provided landscaping and outdoor areas are appropriate to the site. Finally, the findings the commission must make relate to the size of the commercial space. So the 283 square foot storefront space is intended to be deeded as a live workspace with the residential unit above. The space appears to be the largest that can reasonably dedicated to a storefront, mostly given to the fact that this is a 25-foot wide lot. So given the width of the lot, half of your frontage is already must be dedicated to a driveway for the on-site parking, to access doorways for the residential units. It leaves a fairly small footprint for commercial space to begin with. When you combine that with the required parking, the required storage areas, the required recycling areas, these are all things that are competing for real estate on the ground floor. So given its intended use as an office or small retail space, the proposed storefront size is adequate for the proposed use and is the largest possible area given the physical constraints of the structure and the site. And we did receive written correspondence, some of which was attached to the report. Some others were received after, which were referenced by the chair. And I will end my report here and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Does anyone have questions for staff? Commissioner Mackin?
One quick question, Julia. The unit that is deeded as a live-work unit, out of curiosity, can that storefront ever be severed from the residential unit above to be sold as to a separate owner?
It could, but it would be hard.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, it's intended to be a condominium development that requires a condo plan be prepared and recorded. The condo plan is what sets out the actual division of airspace, as well as like what parts of the property belong to which, owner, or what are conveyed. What is the legal description of each individual unit? So in this case, they'd be creating I don't want to say a lot, that's not the right word, but the legal description associated with both the residential unit B and the ground floor storefront, they'd be combined together into one legal document. In order to undo that, they would have to revise their condominium plan and go through more process. So it's not impossible, it would be arduous.
Okay, so concurrent with that, since it would belong to the resident upstairs, could they in fact have a tenant or family member live in that front storefront?
Hypothetically, I mean, legally, no, it's intended to be used for storefront use. I don't know if someone would want to live in a space that wasn't a true residential unit. There's no interior connection. There are no cooking facilities. There is a bathroom because that's required by code. It's not set up to be a dwelling unit. I don't think it would be, it doesn't inherently make sense to me that it would be used as such. But is it totally out of the realm of possibility? No, but I don't think that's unique to this property.
Okay, thank you.
So Julia, as a follow-up question, if someone were to use that as a residence, would that be in violation of our code?
Yes, it would.
And so what would the penalty be?
Code enforcement, they'd be, whoever was occupying it would be evicted.
Okay.
I mean, just like, so I don't mean to be flippant. I don't think it's likely it would be used as a living space at all. We do have several other properties on Visitation that have small office areas that have been proposed as part of their development to meet the storefront requirement. That I think has been brought up before, like it's been questioned if those units are being rented for storefront use, but at the end of the day, our enforcement is the same across properties. So again, I won't say that it's completely impossible that someone might try this, but it's not compliant with our code and we would enforce on that property just like any other.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have questions for staff? Okay, then I will open the public hearing and we can hear from our applicant.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission and members of the Planning Department. My name is Ritu Vora. I am the owner and the project sponsor for 213 Visitation. Julia, may I request starting the slides, please?
Yeah, I'm just figuring that out now. Hold on just a moment. Okay, should be good to go. And just tell me when to advance.
Yeah, I'll just say next slide, please. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so just to give you a brief introduction, my husband and I started in the construction business about 10 years ago. I'm an ex-CPA and he is a tech engineer. And since then, in the last 10 years, we've been working in San Francisco primarily and even parts of the peninsula, doing single family homes and a few multi-unit residential projects. This is our first mixed use project. And we do think Brisbane is an adorable city. I visit Brisbane often because I have very dear friends that live in Brisbane. Among other members of our team, we have Mark Topecha from Topecha Architecture. Mark and I have worked together prior to this project, working on multi-unit dwellings in San Francisco. And Mark brings a wealth of technical expertise and knowledge and code expertise that he has worked tirelessly with the planning department, the building department for fire code enforcement and public works and the city engineers to make sure that we have a proposal that we have presented to you today. We also have Atisha Varshni from Forward City Labs, who is an urban planner and brings a wealth of experience consulting both with large corporations and developers as well as public agencies. And she has been instrumental in guiding us and navigating us in understanding the zoning requirements as well as the planning requirements and trying to make sure that we have a meeting point that we can come together with a successful project that we can present to you folks today. Next slide, please. So just to give you a quick overview, 213 Visitation is downtown. It's in the flatter part of Brisbane, of downtown Brisbane, which makes it incredibly walkable. It's close to the new upcoming library, which is fabulous, close to the swimming pool, close to Silver Spot, elementary school, close to the Brisbane Park, and close to the Midtown Grocery, which is next block, and about a 3-minute walk away, even from, the shuttle services that service, for the commercial shuttle services that service Brisbane. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit of context, I bought this property in June of 2019. The house is currently in a derelict condition. It's completely uninhabitable, and we have since boarded it up due to road infestation and having to deal with San Mateo vector. The house has also changed hands 5 times or 4 times in the last 5 years. And due to the unique constraints, primarily due to the size of the project, we've had severe restrictions in terms of what we could propose on this project. And it's been a lot of work to come together. And nobody in the last 10 years has actually been able to come together and propose something. And we have collaborated well with the different departments, and we hope that what we're proposing to you is something that you will appreciate. Next slide, please. Okay, so the original proposal that we made when we bought the project was a four bedroom units of 4 units of 2 bedrooms each with 2 on-site parking spots, and we were going to ask for a use permit of 4 spots. That was definitely not met very well with the planning department, and there was going to be a retail square footage of 350 square feet. We had no outdoor space that we were providing, and we were providing 2 bike parking spots at that time. Since then, gathering feedback from the planning department and understanding, what was important to the community and talking to members of the community, we went ahead and revised our proposal in June. And, just as, while we were doing that, we were in the middle of COVID. So there was a whole new world unfolding around us as to what was going to happen with retail. And we had conversations with the planning department as to what the future of Visitation is going to be. Is it going to be a bustling retail, or, is there a study planned whether you would remove commercial from Visitation altogether? And our intermediate plan in June of 2020 actually had 4 units of 2 bedrooms each with 2 car parking spots at the same time. And we retained the retail. We got some feedback on the massing of the property. And so we took setbacks in the front of the property. And we were at that point going to actually lose 1 street parking spot. But we have since worked with that and we're retaining all the parking spots in the street. We also looked at leased parking options off-site, and we talked to the city manager, we talked to folks at the Brisbane Inn, the Midtown Market. I had Facebook posts out there to see if there was some way I could lease parking to make the parking work. And that due diligence definitely helped us understand the sensitivity of Brisbane to towards parking, and also make us revisit what we could do. We've also revisited a lot of the prior planning commission hearings, especially 18 Visitation, looked at matters that are very sensitive to the commission as they represent the community. And we've taken a lot of matters to heart. And the final iteration and proposal that we have made to you today reflects that. We downsized the counts of bedrooms in the units. And so instead of doing 4 units at 2 bedrooms each, we reduced them from 2 units with 2 bedrooms and 2 units with 1 bedroom. In also talking with the planning department and understanding that there is this flux as to what is going to happen with retail, we decided we're going to actually convert the retail space to live work. And the rationale behind that was that in the future, if retail really doesn't take off on Visitation Street, the live work will actually provide a home office to either a private practitioner like an architect or an acupuncturist or a realtor. And if retail takes off, then that it could still serve the same purpose. And I think by doing the live work option, where we've been attempting to future-proof the building from whatever decisions come in future years for the future of Visitation. And so that way we can still keep the commercial look and feel of the city, and we can make sure that the project remains vibrant in years to come. We finally had stackers. I don't know why they'd not come to us before, but we finally had mechanical stackers that we've included. So we were able to double the parking size from 2 parking spots to 4 parking spots. In lieu of the 1 parking spot, which is essentially 0.5 parking spots for each of the 2 bedroom units, we've provided 2 bike parking spots each. So we have a total of 6 bike parking spots, 2 for commercial and 2 each in lieu of the 1.5 car spot that we're looking for. We also worked with the city engineer and the various departments to make sure that there was no street space lost for, no parking loss, the street parking loss. In also preparing for this proposal, one of the things that was very important to us and we gathered from the commission hearings was, why are these proposals being, passed but not built? And one of the things we want to share with the commission is that we're definitely committed to building this project. And so in presenting this final iteration with us, we have also gone ahead and talked to banks and looked at what it takes to get construction loans underwritten at this point where, retail has taken such a big beating. Single family residential is, 1 bedroom units are frowned upon now that people are working from home and Zoom calls are, the new way of life. And our final proposal actually is a reflection of a lot of behind the scenes groundwork. But if that's something that you all appreciate and you'll bless, we look forward to actually putting the building together in the next 18 to 24 months. Next slide, please. So just to give you a quick recap, we have proposed conditioned square feet about 4,500 square feet. We estimate that based on our expected sale prices that it would provide tax revenue of approximately $1 million over the next 30 years. Like I mentioned, we've also talked to banks about what would be the, a reasonable project that we can propose for which we can get construction lending on, since we would not be able to afford to build this project on our own cash. We also think that this project is in line with the commission's and the city's intent to revitalize downtown with the the fabulous new library, the approval of the 18 visitation plan, etc. And the car parking will be EV ready, and we're going to have 6 bike parking spots. And the materials that we have used for this are also sustainable materials. So it's not a lot of wood boarding, etc., that would be dated over a period of time. So we hope that we are presenting a project that's timeless. In also presenting this project, one very important consideration is we did not put any windows on the left side of the street, which would actually be facing the bay. We would have captured fantastic views, and that would have actually given us a better return for the dollar on that. But I think it would hamper development prospects or building prospects for our adjacent neighbors. And so in being sensitive to that, our plan has windows and doors in the front and the back of the building, and a light well to make sure that we get the necessary light and air requirements while being very respectful for what the future holds for our neighbors. At this point, I'm going to just hand over the presentation to Atisha. Thank you.
Okay, I was unmuted. I just really want to thank everyone, all the planning commissioners and city staff. It's 9:30 on a Thursday night, so thank you. The holiday season, we all want to go back to our families, decorating our trees. I think Ritu and Julia has done a great job of presenting the project to everyone. I want to quickly go through there. We all understand there is a big housing crisis in our region, especially in Bay Area. Even with COVID, it's not going away. With all the migration out patterns we are seeing. And this project, understanding the demography of Brisbane, which is 50% families and 50% couples per your journal plan numbers in 2015-16. And we are really trying to make this a project that fits your demography, fits the needs, like, for nuclear families, young couples, single professionals, and seniors, like what they can afford. Like, there is affordability that they can afford in their incomes. And we are really trying to make sure that the project and the unit sizes are made appropriate to their affordability. And we are also, as Ritu shared, like this is supporting the climate change. It's keeping the carbon footprint low. We are making it EV ready, and we are really leveraging the walkability of the neighborhood. So like the people don't have to get into their cars and go to a grocery store 2 miles away, but they really leverage what they have next door and bring business to the downtown. Next slide, please. We see this project as a very positive impact on the neighborhood. We are redeveloping a derelict property, which is, we have received letters in support from our neighbors that the existing condition of the property impacts their business as it is today. We are meeting all the downtown goals as stated in journal plan. We are bringing 4, right now there's no resident on that property. So we are like really increasing the consumers to the downtown businesses. We are respecting the design. And as Ritu shared, like we want to make sure that our neighbors can leverage the same value from their property as we are trying to from our property. So we are really respectful of them. And we are making sure that this is a small drop, not a big, but towards the larger arena targets that the city has to meet. And we are already planning ahead, as Julia shared, towards the SB 743, which is like converting 2 vehicle miles per travel, how traffic is measured. And all California cities have to do it ASAP. Next slide. As Ritu shared, in this whole process and with all these iterations and working with the city staff, which is overly helpful and prompt in communication, like one of my best experience in the last 5 years being in Bay Area and working in this industry. What we are really requiring per our need, we are supposed to give 5 cars in 4 units, and we are really just requesting you to reduce 1 car for the overall project, which is also 0.5 per unit, because I don't think so we will be able to sell a 0.5 car parking spot to anyone. But beyond that, the width of the project and being able to give a direct fire access to the back, it really limits the number of cars we can park. And so basically two reasons that we want to provide, are requesting reduction of the use permit to reduce the car parking stops. But we are providing 6 parking spots. Like, this is pretty contemporary, like everyone is biking these days, and we don't want people to be hauling their bikes to their third floor unit. And we are making sure that we are providing dedicated secure bike storage on ground floor. Next slide. Yeah, so kind of just also looking into some of the market trends. A lot of people, like in my age group, don't want to own 2 cars, or we cannot afford to have 2 car insurances and 2 car loans. So definitely we prefer biking. And I live in a townhome where I don't have a bike parking stall, and it's really one reason I want to change, move out, because I can park my bike in my townhome. And definitely also moving towards, as I shared, more climate sensitivity and ethics towards giving my future generation a better, cleaner environment to live in. Next slide, please. And as you can see, this is just a really simple slide of sharing like what that one stall is going to cost us. One car stall is about 350 square feet, which is pretty much larger than the commercial area we're trying to propose and fit into the ground floor. And in terms of cost, both the real estate and the construction cost, that is about $50,000 to $70,000. And this is real numbers, like any numbers you can check around the area. And that's pretty much like tuition fee for 2 years of graduate school for any student. So we are really looking forward to you to help us bring this project. As we are very committed. If we get a yes, I think we want to break ground as soon as possible and get this to market in like 18 months. And really, work with you to see how it can fit your community better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have a question for our applicants? Let me see here. Okay, I see no one. Thank you very much. Let's open it up for public comments.
So if anyone in the Zoom wants to comment, please send a chat to the host. And anyone at home can call the numbers on the screen.
Mary Rogers would like to comment.
Okay, we'll hear from her.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So I live in Brisbane, lived in Brisbane for over 30 years. And I'm a little concerned with the project. Again, we're trying to stuff a 6,500 square foot building into a 2,700 square foot lot. That would never happen if it wasn't zoned, was mixed zone. Also concerned about the car stacker. I'm not a big fan of those. I would like to ask the owners, the developers, can all 4 cars leave the garage at the same time in case there was an emergency? Looking at the way they're structured, it doesn't look like you can do that, but I don't know all the particulars of those car stackers. They're very tight. There's only 4 covered parking spaces. You have 4 units going into this project. The likelihood of more than 1 car per unit is high. I know that you're promoting, the bike racks and such, but realistically, you will probably have more than 1 car per unit. So that will take up an already congested Visitation Avenue. And I'd like to point out in the agenda letter, section 4, where it says the granting of the use permit will not create or intensify a shortage of on-street parking spaces. the project meets this finding. Well, that is not true. Visitation is already congested. We don't have enough parking for the new library. People double park on Visitation consistently. And if this project has only 4 covered parking spaces and it's a car stacker, the likelihood of those folks using that car stacker garage is probably low, and they would utilize the parking on Visitation. In addition, there is street cleaning on Visitation, right, on Wednesdays, which causes everybody on Visitation to utilize parking on adjacent streets. And I happen to be on one of those. And it's getting really, the parking issue is getting really bad. So I would like you to really consider, I mean, the design is beautiful. I mean, I know it's an eyesore right now, and anything is an improvement, but the parking is definitely an issue. And I really don't think those car stackers are that safe. I mean, how can everybody leave that garage with that type of stacking mechanical mechanism? I don't know. So those are my concerns about the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have a quick follow-up to that for the applicant. So regarding the car stackers, so can any of the residents access that in terms of moving the vehicles around? How does that work?
Hi, I'm Mark Topicher. I'm the architect. In regards to your question, Commissioner, the car stackers would be independent. So yes, you could move cars around, but there really wouldn't be a necessity to do that, as you could access your own car individually. You wouldn't need to move a car for your neighbor. It's a mechanical, you could think of it more like an elevator. If your car is stacked on top, the mechanism moves the lower car down into the car pit. That's approximately 5.5 feet deep, and you can pull out your car from on top. Vice versa, the lower car can pull up and on the car stacker mechanism and pull out of the garage. As far as all the cars leaving simultaneously, it's an unlikely situation in case of an emergency. I'm trying to imagine where you would want to get in your car and run out of a building in an emergency. But if so, I mean, we're talking 4 cars, you would need a width of approximately 60 feet, and our lot is only 25 feet wide. So we've got a single car driveway passing over the pedestrian street. So, you know, there are other urban, I think, considerations with pedestrians on the sidewalk and cars coming and going. Again, we're talking about 4 cars. So there's not a lot of traffic in and out. The residents, you know, there may be some peak times at in morning hours, or people coming home from work potentially. And as far as, you know, people having more than 1 car, I'm sure that's a possibility, but that would be the case regardless of, you know, if we had 5 parking spaces and everyone chose to have 2 cars, we would still, you know, you would still have the same set of issues. And as far as having a car stacker available, a private, secure parking space, I think any resident there would much prefer parking in their own private garage rather than on the public street and having to deal with street cleaning and moving cars, you know, periodically every week, et cetera. So there is a good advantage of having that car stacker in there. And to underscore, you know, just trying to meet parking or accommodating 4 cars on site for a lot that's only 25 feet wide, sure, you could do it, but it leaves absolutely no room for any of the other requirements that one would need to construct any building here. It's basically, you could accommodate a 4-car parking lot. You've got to have the ability to pull in and out of the garage head first. So there's got to be room to turn around within the garage, which we have shown some diagrams of how that would work. Beyond that, there really isn't space to have more than 2 cars parked physically on the ground surface, if you will, if you don't use a car stacker. And in addition, just with the amount of space required for stair access, for emergency egress from the rear yard out to the public right-of-way to the street, by the time you take all of that into account, regardless of the number of units you would have there, it leaves minimal space to have more than 2-car parking at grade level. So the car stacker, which is, they're becoming more and more prevalent in use in the Bay Area here. And certainly, you know, the future of cars is also something that is a question. I think there's a diagram being shown how the tentative how the car stacker would work. And it's more or less, I think that's the mechanism that we're talking about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this car stacker, it couldn't fit an SUV? It's only for compact cars?
There are some limits. It would depend on the SUV. If you have a smaller SUV like a RAV4 or you know, certainly wouldn't support a large suburban car type of SUV, but smaller SUVs would be able to be accommodated. Most cars are approximately 6 feet in height, including SUVs, and typically the car lengths of I don't want to say just compact cars are approximately 16 feet in length and 6 feet in width. So we are dealing with enough space to accommodate a wide range of cars. Obviously, if you have a vehicle on the larger size, it may be a bit of a challenge and it may not fit. So I think that would be certainly a consideration if you're choosing to live in one of these units that you probably would consider.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, do we have any more public comments?
No one else has indicated they'd like to comment. I could throw the slide back up for 30 seconds if you want.
Okay.
Ten-second warning. No one else has notified me to chat.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move
So
we
moved.
close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, let's take a roll call.
Commissioner Gomez? You are muted. Commissioner Gomez?
Aye. Sorry about that.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Saison?
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, so let's discuss. Who would like to start? Commissioner Gooding, how about you? Any comments?
Yeah, I think the only my only qualm about it is the parking issue that residents raise with almost any issue that comes before us, because it's an ever-present problem, and I'm conscious of it and sensitive to it. My understanding is that parking all along Visitation, or at least for this block and a block north and south, or up and down anyway, are all 2-hour parkings, at least during the day. So I think that sort of mitigates against the residents of this structure spilling out onto Visitation itself, I would think. And I take the point that the architect made, that people would certainly rather use a parking facility inside their structure than outside if they had a choice. What we're really talking about is theoretically 5 spaces being optimally required. So we're only talking about a delta of one car, one space, in return for which we get, if we approve the use permit, an attractive structure that adds housing to a city that needs it. So those are my thoughts at this point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mackin?
I just would, I'd like to commend the designers, everyone involved on this. It seems like for infill housing, they really reached into all the details, including the question when I first looked at this about the walls and the lack of windows on the walls, the fact that they thought through that some of the buildings on either side may not be there forever. I think that it's an attractive building. That's my subjective comment. I like the architecture in that it kind of harkens to both old and new, and that's represented by the design of the windows. And I understand we had some correspondence objecting to the height, but the fact that the third story is articulated back, it really does not have the look of a three-story building. So I just would commend, of many things we've seen, there's been a lot of thought put into this, and I would just commend everyone who put this together.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, yeah, I would just like to add that, you know, I thought it was also a very creative design and also creative use of that live workspace. When I first, you know, kind of, you know, heard about this and thought, wow, it's going to be really small storefront size. And I thought, you know, that's not going to be really practical. But then when I heard it was going to be deeded to a unit and be a live work space, you know, I thought that was a good use. And, you know, I can envision, you know, a lot of things for it. It could be an artist studio. It could be whatever, you know, I think, you know, and definitely the 4 units that will be there. I mean, we definitely need more housing. I think parking was my only concern, but I think the fact that, you know, Visitation is very walkable, you know, I mean, each unit will have a car. So, you know, and, you know, anyone else living there that needs transportation, you know, there's public transportation, you know, and there's amenities nearby. So it's a very walkable place. So all in all, I think it's a good design, and I think it's something that is needed in the city, especially to revitalize, you know, downtown Brisbane. So those are my thoughts. So no other comments from the commissioners? If not, then I'll take a motion. Oh, Commissioner Mackin?
I just want to add one other thing, just also to note that on that lot, they could have easily opted to just put 2 units. The fact they put 4, I actually commend you for that, because there is a sorry need for smaller units, and everyone wants to build big. So thank you for thinking of that.
Okay, thank you. So Commissioner Mackin, then would you like to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion that we adopt use permit UP-4-20 and design permit DP-2-20.
Okay, and let's take a voice vote.
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Saison?
Aye, motion passes. Okay, thank you very much. And I guess I still need to read the appeals process now.
Well, you did read it at the beginning of the meeting. I'm presuming everybody was in attendance,
Okay.
so I think you're okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so next we'll move on to the next item. And that is public hearing regarding 515 Tunnel Avenue. It's use permit UP-7-20, HC Heavy Commercial District. The applicant seeks a use permit to allow temporary storage of Christmas trees for recycling from December 13, 2020 through January 31, 2021. Brad Durda is the applicant. Recology Properties Inc. Sanitary Fill Company is the owner. Staff, may we have the report?
Yes, thank you. Recology requests approval to temporarily store Christmas trees for recycling within an approximately 90 by 100-foot area of their paved storage yard at 515 Tunnel Avenue. The request is to allow discarded trees to be collected in San Francisco from December 17th through January 31st, temporarily stored at the site and then reloaded for chipping at Recology's materials recovery facility, which is just over the border in San Francisco. The chip materials would then be used for landscaping mulch materials. A temporary storage area is needed because the surge of trees collected, which is approximately 25 truckloads a day at the peak, would exceed the rate that they can be processed at that facility in San Francisco. Essentially, the same use permit request has been approved by the Planning Commission on an annual basis dating back to 2008. So this will be the 13th year for this use. A temporary use permit is requested since the zoning does not otherwise specify this use through the standard use permit provisions, but it is permissible as a temporary use, which is limited to 45 days in duration, which this would be. There are a couple findings that are required for the granting of a use permit, and this application meets those findings. They relate to consideration of adjacent uses and general plan consistency, and that the use would not be detrimental or injurious to the neighborhood or city. Also, for a temporary use permit, the commission is to consider such factors as damage or nuisance from such things as noise, odor, dust, and so on. These factors go hand in hand with the finding of the use not being detrimental or injurious to the neighborhood or city. The findings are provided and discussed in further detail in the agenda report. The approximately 12-foot tall pile of trees will be set back approximately 300 feet from Tunnel Avenue and Beatty Avenue frontages of the site, so as to minimize its visibility to the public. The proposed hours would be from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. A vehicle traffic flow plan was provided in the agenda report showing access and egress. To assure that the Christmas trees do not become a nuisance if stored too long, 48-hour turnover would also be required. Additionally, conditions of approval were once again recommended regarding management of those piles. So in closing, staff has distributed the application to the Public Works Department, North County Fire Authority, as well as the Regional Water Quality Control Board and San Mateo County Environmental Health, since this is on a former landfill site. No exceptions were taken by any of those agencies or departments, and no concerns have been raised by the public by the time of this agenda report, nor has the city received any complaints from previous years of operations. Finally, in closing, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve temporary use permit UP 720 via the adoption of the resolution that was included in your staff report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay, do any of the commissioners have a question for staff? Okay, I see no one. I will open up the public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak?
This is Brad Darda. I'm the applicant. I would just like to thank you for your time this evening in considering this important phase of the cycle of Christmas trees storage before grinding.
Okay, thank you. See you again. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Darda? Okay, no, thank you, sir. Let's open up for public comments.
Commissioner Gooding has a question, I think.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Gooding?
You're muted, Commissioner.
Sorry. One quick question, more out of curiosity than out of relevance, but you asked for a period beginning December 13th. Who in the world recycles their tree 12 days before Christmas?
That's a fine question. I'm going to say Christmas tree lots sometimes have trees that are bent or sad or generally unattractive.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. So any public comments?
So far, no one has indicated that. We have about a minute left.
Okay.
We have about 20 seconds. I have no one indicating to speak to the commission.
Okay, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, let's take a voice vote.
Commissioner Gomez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
You're muted.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye. Sorry.
Commissioner Saison,
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, I don't think there's probably going to be much discussion, so unless there is, does anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve use permit UP-7-20.
In a second?
Second.
Okay, we take a roll call?
Commissioner Gomez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding 470 Valley Drive, use permit UP-8-20. It's in a TC-1 Trade Commercial District, Crocker Industrial Park. The applicant seeks a use permit to allow night operations within 300 feet of residential uses, permitting food production in a new bakery from 10 p.m. until 3 a.m. Luke Vernon is the applicant. CSHV Crocker LLC is the owner. Staff, may we have the report?
Thank you, Chair. I first want to highlight that the corresponding staff report and notice did indicate the allowable time to conduct night operations for this request would be between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., but the applicant is requesting it to be from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Okay.
The activities listed in the attached business operations plan remain the same, and there would not be any truck deliveries during this time. This request would be for a new bakery, which is a permitted use in the district, and we're certainly looking for the use permit. The 71,675 square foot property is developed with the 35,915 square foot one-story masonry building. The site has 36 parking spaces compliant with the parking requirements in the Brisbane Municipal Code, and access is via 2 driveways off Valley Drive. Uses along the 400 block of Valley Drive include retail, wholesale, warehouse, distribution, and freight forwarding. To the north are residential condominiums. Those condominiums are approximately 175 feet from this building. The applicant would require to improve the inside of the building to suit their business needs of the bakery, but there are no exterior changes proposed to the building or outside the building on the site. To grant a use permit, the Planning Commission must consider the nature and condition of adjacent uses and structures, determine if the establishment and operation of the use will be detrimental to health, safety, and welfare, determine if the night operations conducted by the applicant will create noise, glare, or other effects that are likely to create a sleep disturbance for the occupants of neighboring residential properties, and consider the extent that any noise, glare, or other impacts related to the night operations, if caused by persons other than the applicant has the ability to effectively control and mitigate such impacts. With respect to this request, the use is consistent with the trade commercial land use designation. Per the applicant's business operation plan, All activities will be contained within the building, and no trucks will be making deliveries between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Recommended conditions of approval would ensure continued compliance with the city's noise ordinance, and any future work shall demonstrate there will be no impacts from noise, glare, odor, or other impacts. And lastly, the applicant, as owner of the business, maintains the ability to effectively control and mitigate potential impacts from others. Staff recommends approval of use permit UP 820 by adoption of resolution UP 8-20 containing the findings and conditions of approval. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
Oh, Madam Chair, before you turn it over for questions, I know one of the commissioners had a question posed it to Jeremiah about, again, confirming the wording in that particular section of the code. It is a little bit inartful, but I just did want to confirm that the code does allow for use permit proposals and for properties within 300 feet of residential property. That is the intent of the code, and that's, although I know the wording may not be clear, that's the original intent. Has been implemented that way in the more than 15 plus years that I've been here. So again, I didn't want to, for Commissioner Gooding's benefit, I just wanted to give a little bit of background.
Okay, thank you. So does anyone have a question for staff? Commissioner Mackin.
Jeremiah, could you please clarify, in the staff report, there are places I read 300 feet, within 300, and then I read 175. Is this linear feet climbing up the hill? Or is it, as the red-tailed hawk flies across Brisbane, a straight line up across from Altamont to the warehouse?
It would be a straight line looking on a 2D map from the site building to the
And that is in fact 175 feet.
Approximately, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Building to building.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gooding.
Yeah, aside from the statutory issue that I'll get to in a minute, I had a couple of factual questions. What, if you know, what was the prior use of this site?
The prior use was related to the Jericho project, and that was sort of social services is kind of what their mission is.
Right, yeah. And that, I take it, was a daytime use only.
Correct. There was no previous night operations at this location.
Are there any other night use permits on this block of Valley Street?
On this block, there is not. There's one other in the trade commercial district, sort of at the other end near City Hall.
Okay. Is that on Valley or on Valley?
I believe it's Park Lane.
Okay. Is that the only other night use in the Crocker Park?
In the Crocker Park, correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, I need to get to the statute issue then, because I've been looking at this, and for the benefit of my fellow commissioners, what I'm looking at is Brisbane Municipal Code 17.19.060 that concerns night operations in certain areas. And I want to read from subsection B of that, which says, except as otherwise provided in subsection C of this section, which is a grandfather clause that's not applicable here, no business or other use shall engage in the conduct of night operations within the Crocker Park District where the location on the site where such night operations will be conducted is within 300 feet from the nearest lot line of a residential property. And I'm just frankly at a loss as to how this gets interpreted in any other way but to preclude a night use permit at this location because of its proximity to residential areas.
If I could, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Again, this is some of this inartful wording. That whole description that Commissioner Gooding's related to is all in reference to when a use permit is required. The requirement for a use permit applies, again, where the site is located within 300 feet of a residential lot. I mean, again, I would agree it's not the most clearly written statute,
I would dispute that.
And wording.
I
Commissioner Gooding, we've had this discussion with the city attorney. This is an ongoing process. We've been procedure that we've been implementing for more than 15 years. So, I don't know what to tell you, but that is our process.
Has the city attorney issued a formal opinion on this issue?
No.
Okay. I guess my other questions will be to the applicant about the potential noise issues, except I'll be going over, well, maybe staff can shed light on it. Let me get over to that. I think it's on page probably 186 of this packet. That's the way it's numbered on my screen. Where the, yeah, it is 186, where the hours of operation are discussed. And I'm kind of going to focus on the descriptions as it would impact activities between 10 a.m. and 5 a.m., which is what is defined as night in the municipal code. So it looks to me like the shift schedule in the evening would involve a second shift of 30 employees leaving the facility or ending their shift at 12:30 a.m., which is night. A sanitation shift of 5 employees coming in at 1 a.m., which is night, and leaving at 3 a.m., which is night. Is that still their current application and their current proposed hours of operation?
Yes. The only, I guess, caveat would be instead of the ending at 3 a.m., they would be authorized to go to the 5 a.m.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
And 10 a.m. to 5 a.m. is
the period for night operations. Yes.
Brisbane night, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that it, Commissioner Gooding?
Yeah, for staff, I think it is. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I think earlier I saw Commissioner Gomez. Did you still have a question, Commissioner Gomez, or?
It was Doug. Commissioner Gooding was asking a similar question that I was thinking around existing night use permits. So I don't have anything further.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we will then open the public hearing and let's hear from the applicant.
Hi, I'm Luke Vernon. Appreciate all you staying up late to do this and all that you've done to fit us into the agenda to hear our application. And just to speak briefly about Raison d'Etre Bakery, it's been around for 25 years as a family-owned business, and the family is still very involved in the business and produces a line of Parmesan cheese crisps, which are packaged in a container like this. It's effectively a cracker made out of Parmesan cheese. It's sold nationally in Whole Foods as well as other major retailers. It's the #1 selling product in its category in every retailer where it's placed. And that's because of the healthy benefits of the product itself. And so we are not the normal bakery as people think of what a bakery does. We don't have trucks coming in and out and delivering products to all sorts of different restaurants and coffee shops. We are a business that produces very few product lines, and the product lines go and sit on the shelf of retailers. All the deliveries that are made at our facility and all the pickups of trucks, of which we only have 2 or 3 a day, is all done during the day. All of the trucking companies that we contract with require do daytime pickups and deliveries, and that's just part of how the business operates in our industry. And I have several colleagues on with us, and I'd like to ask our CEO, David Brogan, to speak to just the operations of the business a little bit more to address the concerns around noise. He's intimately knows the production environment, any noise that's produced, and can speak to that.
Well, thank you all for listening to our application and taking time to do that. We appreciate that. Just want to talk to you a little bit about noise and light. We're a wholesale bakery, and the equipment that we use, we don't use any heavy industrial equipment. So the equipment we use is ovens. We use these large double rack ovens. We've got 10 of them. The only moving part in that is an arm that holds the double rack, so that just turns. We use depositors to deposit cheese, and when we're making other products, we'll use depositors. The only moving parts in the depositors is a conveyor. We also use labeling machines, conveyor systems, label applicators. Our forklifts are electric, so there's no industrial noise that we could make that could really escape that building and cause any upset to neighbors. If you stood outside our building, you wouldn't hear any industrial equipment. So that's the equipment side of it. As far as the deliveries, Luke's spoken to that, but our deliveries are Monday to Friday. Our dock is only open from 7 to 2 a.m., 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Oh, okay, so somebody's just showing on screen right now. They're the ovens we use. We use oven racks. The only moving parts there are wheels. And if we could see the next slide on that, I can just take you through some of the rest of the equipment. So here we have mixers, large mixers. The only moving part on that would be the motor and the mixing arm. To the right of that is a cheese depositor, and that's just got a motor and a conveyor belt. And all of these equipment, the depositor there, you might hear a low hum, but you literally have to be in the vicinity of all this equipment to hear it. And given the size of that space, it's hard to conceive of any noise escaping our facility that could disturb any neighbors at any time of the day. I think on the last slide here, we've got some of our packing equipment. And you can see there that we have label applicators. The moving parts there are just the labeling machine and conveyors. And then on the other side there, there's a metal detector. And again, there's a conveyor there. So that's the extent of our industrial equipment. There's nothing there. There's nothing pneumatic. There's nothing loud, any loud engines or motors or anything like that that could cause any extreme noise. I think the loudest noise that would be in our plan is literally the noise of a pan being placed in a rack. So that might be some clanging, but you wouldn't hear that beyond 30, 40 feet, certainly not outside the building. In fact, I was outside our production facility today just listening for noise, and there was no evident noise from that building at all. And as far as the staffing goes, the night shift, as we discussed, is made up of production people in the first instance, and then a small sanitation crew. The building is such that there's plenty of room for people to take breaks and so forth inside the building. So the only noise that there potentially could be is people arriving and leaving from the parking lot. And that would be at the start and the end of the shift. We make sure that people stay inside during their breaks. And so that would take care of the staffing side of that. So for any of you that bake at home, our equipment is just straightforward baking equipment, but it's degrees bigger. It's 10, 20 times bigger. It's on an industrial scale. And with the light, we wouldn't be adding any light to the facility that's not currently there. We know that the lighting on the facility that is there right now is currently to code. It's all downward facing. And any upgrades we made to that light would also be compliant with city code. And
Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have anything more to say?
No, I was just going to hand over to my colleague, Taylor, who would talk to you about the odor issue. There was a question about odor that we want to address.
Okay.
So Taylor, if you can speak to that.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Taylor Keaton. I'm the project engineer helping on the build out side of the plant. I have expertise in the food industry for many years and have completed a number of successful build outs for factories, and particularly in dealing with municipalities and the surrounding area to make sure that we're in compliance and satisfying everybody's needs. So with regard to this particular build out, the primary thing coming from the factory that could be a bother to neighbors is odor. You know, oftentimes factories come with an associated, you know, smell. In this case, it's Parmesan that's being baked. And we plan on implementing a state-of-the-art pollution control system. The only place that we will exhaust any fumes is during the oven step, when the product actually gets baked. And those fumes will be, you know, every exhaust from each oven will go through a single pollution control unit. And that is it's a unit that's designed for restaurants, you know, places that put out more significant odors than we will be producing to start with. And further than that, it is specifically designed for odor reduction. So there's a couple of stages of filters that are just general exhaust filters that any hood would integrate, as well as a couple stages of activated carbon filters, which will be maintained and will be quite efficient at removing odors from the exhaust. I expect that we will not have any issues from, you know, even just outside the building, let alone any of the nearby buildings.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have a question or any questions for the applicant? Okay, then I have a quick question regarding your employees and the shifts and whatnot. So just to confirm, for your second baking shift, you expect about 30 employees will be there from 4:30 p.m. and then leaving at 12:30 a.m., correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then for your second cleaning shift, there's 5 employees that are arriving at 1 a.m. and then leaving at 3 a.m.?
Yeah, they would probably arrive maybe about 10 o'clock at night, and they would do complete sanitation and cleaning of the whole site. They would start in the non-production areas, and when production finished at 12:30, they would go clean the production areas, do the ovens, the floors, and things like that. So they would probably be leaving, if they start at 10, they would probably leave about 6:30.
Okay, so 6:30 a.m. is when they would leave. Okay. Okay, and that's pretty much it in terms of the employees that would be coming and going. It's those 30 at 12:30 a.m. and then essentially at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. I'm trying to think of movement during the times that folks are sleeping.
Yes, so that would be the movement, and I think that at the time when folks are sleeping, it'd be people leaving at about 12:30. That would be the main use of the parking lot at that time. And sorry, go ahead.
And I did read in the staff report that you expect most of your employees to be driving their own cars. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of our staff carpool. We come in teams. So yeah, there would be some people cycle to work, but most of them would be carpooling together.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anyone have any, Commissioner Gooding?
Yeah, thank you, sir. One more quick question. I assume, or is it the case that your ovens and machines in there would be venting and exhausting through the roof or ceiling of this facility?
Yeah,
yes, that's correct.
You can answer that.
And so is your building anticipated to look like here on the ridge where I live? You can see the tops of a lot of commercial buildings in Crocker Park, and there's a lot of HVAC on top. Is that roughly what your building would look like too, with the HVAC machinery on top that would drive the fans and drive the exhaust stuff?
Yeah, that's representative of what the top of that building will be like.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any more questions? Okay, thank you. And we'll now take public comments.
Kevin Fryer here.
Okay. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Kevin Fryer, and I'm on the board, association board of Altamar, and I wrote on behalf of our board, I wrote a letter which you should have gotten. In listening to this, Commissioner Gooding brought up a point that we put in the letter, which is that Ordinance Code 17-19-060 restricts nighttime businesses from 10 to 5 a.m. on businesses that are located 300 feet or less from a residential property line, which I go on in this letter to point out that would include, by our calculations, 600 buildings, or 6 buildings, 65 units, and approximately 150 individuals. Now, John Swinkie, you were sort of made some comments about the wording of this was inartful, leading in without any sort of follow through, leading me to think that perhaps there's wiggle room or something's incorrect about it. But I tell you, as we read it as a board, and as Commissioner Gooding read it at the beginning of this section of the meeting, it seemed very, very straightforward to me. So I don't really understand, if you are going to go ahead and approve this, how you are not doing that without a variance to the code. I would also say that, and you know, I appreciate that the people who represent the bakery are making lots of nice statements about how quiet an operation it is. But those promises, once a business is in there and starts operation, changes its procedures and so on, maybe changes its products and so on down the line. Once the you know, that's started, there's no recourse for us to go back and say, hey, you know, it started out nice, but now it's gotten really loud and noisy. We have up here an ongoing problem with noise from the industrial park. Also in my letter, I pointed out that in 2018, we had meetings with the city council about this. At that time, we were actually trying to get greater restrictions because of the way that noise travels throughout Crocker Park. Backup beeping lights, beeping sounds from backup of trucks at Amazon, starting at 3 o'clock in the morning and so on, and disturbing neighbors way beyond the 6 buildings that we referred to as being closer than 300 feet. So we are really strenuously opposed to this. We really would like to see the city review the ordinance as it is and strengthen it further, because this is an issue for the health of the residents who live here at Altamar.
Thank you. Jeremiah, do we have any more comments? Anyone else want to speak?
There's no one else that's indicated.
A caller just entered the waiting room. If that caller would like to speak, they can unmute themselves by pressing, I believe it's *6.
*6. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Lynn Gifford. I live one street above Swallowtail. I submitted written comments yesterday. I've been listening carefully. I'm primarily concerned about the employees leaving in the middle of the night. The employer is not going to have control over them and their conversations and their radios and their vehicles. They may not also have control of any noise that's generated by the cleaning crew when they bring out the garbage. So I think that those are things that should also be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other callers? Okay, then we could do a 30-second clock, Jeremiah.
Sure. About 10 seconds.
Okay.
And 30 seconds has elapsed.
Okay, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Okay, let's take a roll call.
Commissioner Gomez,
Aye.
Gooding,
He's muted.
You're on mute.
Sorry, folks. Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Patel,
Aye.
Saison.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, let's have our discussion. Does anyone want to start?
I'll start.
Okay. Commissioner Patel?
I did take a look at section 17.19.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? This is Michelle Salmon. I've been in the waiting room. I got kicked off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, was she waiting?
Yeah. Okay. So can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Well,
Okay.
yes, we'll let Michelle speak then since she was waiting.
I was waiting and I got kicked off when the other woman started to speak. It threw me off.
Okay.
I also am very concerned about the noise. I know I don't live within 300 feet of 470 Valley Drive, but I can assure you that even up here in central Brisbane, we hear a lot of noise from Crocker Industrial Park. There are times when I can hear people speaking at the basketball court. I can hear backup beepers from the trucks in Crocker Industrial Park and in central Brisbane. And the acoustic properties in Brisbane are such that I can't imagine how hard it is for people who live up the ridge. It's really hard for people who live in central Brisbane too, to hear all the nighttime noise. Crocker Industrial Park was built as a light industrial park, not a manufacturing park. It was built for basically storage. And so I see increasing uses and nighttime pollution and a lot of noise. And it's very challenging to try to sleep through that. And I can't imagine living right above that noise, because even here in central Brisbane, some of the noise that we hear at night is I can hear the foghorn out on the bay 6 months out of the year when it's beeping. So we really do have to be sensitive about nighttime noise so that people can sleep. So I'm not, as much as I love bread and bakery and cheese and all that kind of stuff, I'm not sure that this is really the right use for Crocker Industrial Park. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay,
Can I say one more thing? Since you
yes.
don't have a closing comments at the end of the meeting, I would just really like to thank Commissioner Colleen Mackin for her incredible service on the Planning Commission over several years. So thank you, Colleen. And looking forward to seeing you on City Council next week.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, Commissioner Patel, you want to continue?
Sure. So I did take a look at section 17.19.060 of the Brisbane Municipal Code, section B that Commissioner Gooding was talking about, and it was adopted. Looks like it was adopted in 1996 and then amended, or there's some sort of modifications made in 1999. And the code does say, as Mr. Gooding was saying, that the requirements for use permit to conduct night operations. And it says, except as otherwise provided in subsection C of this section, no business or other use shall engage in the conduct of night operations within the Crocker Park District, where the location on the site where such night operations will be conducted will be conducted is within 300 feet from the nearest lot line of a residential property. The planning director shall have authority to adopt administrative interpretations and guidelines for the measurement of the distance between the night operations and the nearest residential property. Subsection C says continuation of night operations by existing businesses. An existing business which has lawfully been conducting night operations without a use permit prior to February 8, 1999 may continue to conduct night operations on the same site and shall be exempted from the provisions of subsection A of this subsection if applicable to such night operations. This exemption shall not apply to any relocation of the night operations to a different site, nor may the exemption be assigned or transferred by the existing business to a different business establishment or use, whether conducted at the same site or elsewhere. The plain reading of that statute indicates that there can be no night operations in this particular area because the city staff has determined that there is residential buildings within 175 feet again, I can't remember, yards or feet, whatever it is, of that building. I guess I understand what Director Sawicki was saying when he was saying, well, it's poorly written and we've been operating under the aspect of being able to allow exceptions to this. But to anyone in the public who is buying a house and sees this statute and decides to buy a house within a particular area of the Crocker Amazon Park would not know that there's an exception to this rule and would rely on this rule when purchasing their property. Therefore, I don't think it's actually really appropriate to circumvent what the statute actually says, which is what Commissioner Gooding was saying, is that this activity is not allowed in this particular area.
Thank you, Commissioner Patel. Commissioner Gooding, the comment.
Thank you very much. Yeah. First, one short disclosure. I do live on the ridge. I don't live in the Altamar development. I live about half a mile up the road, and I'm not directly impacted at all by this particular application. But living on the ridge, I would echo what Ms. Salmon said, which is that the structure of these hillsides is such that noise at the base of the hillside just amphitheaters right up to the residential areas that are, in this case, within 300 feet of the applicant's property. It's a real serious issue. There's a lot of people who live up here now. A substantial portion of the population of Brisbane is now living up here. I have looked at the statute several times. I think in addition to the one that I read earlier and Commissioner Patel just read, when you look at the other sort of chunks of the municipal code about Crocker Park, 17.19.030 discusses what kinds of conditional uses are permitted in the Crocker Park district, and it does include in subsection K night operations, but it goes on to say when subject to the provisions of section 17.19.060 of this chapter, which is the one that I cited earlier, which when I read it, says no business or other use shall engage in the conduct of night operations, etc. I have to respectfully disagree that that's inartfully drafted. To me, there's a plain meaning to this particular statute. If we had a formal opinion by our city attorney that we're wrong as to what we think is the clear language of the statute, we'd have to consider that. We don't have it. I was curious about what other night uses we have in Crocker Park to see if there's a substantial history of, or precedent for when we interpret exceptions to this or don't. And there don't seem to have been terribly many. At this point, there's only one other night use, and it's substantially distant from this particular property. The previous use of this particular property at 470 Valley was not a night use. So the grandfather clause of subsection C of 0.060 wouldn't apply. So in addition to what I think is the clear meaning, I also think there's substantial facts in the application itself that would cast into doubt any findings that we could make that this would not be injurious to the neighborhood. We've got the possibility of 30 to 35 vehicles starting up and driving around within the 300 feet of these residential properties. We've got HVAC on the roof of the building that would be operating presumably during the night shift, during what is defined as night in the municipal code. So even if in some way 0.060 doesn't prohibit this application on its face, I think there's ample facts that would suggest that it actually would create conditions that would militate denial of this application.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gooding. I also actually wanted to follow up on what Commissioner Gooding said. And so in order to approve this use permit, we have to also look at the code, Brisbane Municipal Code 17.40.060, and that states the Planning Commission shall determine whether or not the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the use applied for will, under the circumstances of the particular case, detrimental to the health, safety, comfort, and general welfare of the persons residing or working in the neighborhood of such proposed use, or whether it will be injurious or detrimental to property and improvements in the neighborhood or the general welfare of the city. If the Planning Commission finds that the aforementioned conditions will not result from the particular use applied for, it may grant a use permit. So under the code, we can't even consider granting the use permit unless we first find it would not have a negative impact on the residents or the neighborhood. So I think, then we have to go through the analysis. So the applicants talked about mitigation in terms of, I think, mitigating the odor. They're going to put in a ventilation system, the light pollution, and all that. I get that. The only thing that I have a problem with is how are they going to mitigate the car noise and potential employee noise coming out of their cars for work or leaving work. And you have about 30 cars coming in to the parking lot where you hear car noises of the beepers going on and off when you open when you enter or exit your car. You've got noise, from people walking, out of their cars, potential alarms going off. You've got doors shutting, and let's say when they're about to leave, the engines, they got to turn on the engines are revving. If they have a loud old car or motorcycle, and some cars peel out of the parking lots. So you've got all that going on with potentially 30 different cars. And so I have a hard time of how they're going to mitigate that. And you have to also consider the unique nature of Brisbane. And like Commissioner Gooding, I also live on the Ridge. I live at Landmark on the Ridge, about half a mile from the subject property. And while I probably will not be impacted by this use permit, I can somewhat understand what the residents were talking. We received over 12 letters from residents who are concerned about the noise, how they speak to how this area serves almost like an echo chamber, like everything is magnified. And living here, I can tell you that that's something that I have personally experienced. You know, my house is on a hillside and it overlooks Swallowtail and Clippy. Some of the residents who live there are, you know, that they're impacted by it. So just from my house, I can hear noise traveling from far away, cars driving, and just from the people down the street walking past my house, I can literally hear their conversations. Now, if I was on probably walking closer to them on the street, I probably couldn't hear it. But because the way noise tends to travel upwards, I'm up on my deck and people are, you know, could be hundreds of feet away. I can hear what they're talking about. And it's somewhat shocking, but that's the way noise travels around the ridge. And so, you know, just considering that, I just think, you know, I don't know how that can be mitigated. I just think just the way the noise travels up, if you look at the bakery and the way it's situated right underneath the condos, how people coming in and out of the facility, if they're talking, I can easily see people living up in the condos hearing those conversations. I can bet they'll probably hear all the car beeping sounds, all the cars driving off. And, you know, just hearing, you know, like if it's in the daytime, you know, it's a little bit different because day noise, the sounds tend to blend all together. You know, it's just life. But I think when it's nighttime and it's quiet, every little sound is magnified. And I think every little sound echoes out. And I would hate to have just be awoken in the middle of the night by, you know, even one person leaving the workplace and turning on their car keys and driving off. And then another worker, maybe a minute later or 5 minutes later, doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I just think under this provision, I don't see how we could grant the use permit because, you know, just foreseeing the possibility that it will be detrimental to the health, safety, and comfort of people residing in the neighborhood. So I'm inclined to deny it based upon that. And I think Commissioner Mack, and you had something you wanted to say earlier?
Well, I'll be very quick. I think this is the right business in the wrong location. That simple. I'd love to have this business in Brisbane. I'm very pleased that they are willing to locate in Brisbane. I'm thinking about the former VWR site and going, that might be appropriate, but not to make it sound like we're against employees or cars or any of that. The best way maybe to understand this is picture Valley Drive is a giant amphitheater and you're the audience up on the hill because that's how the sound travels. We're a parabolic bowl. And you can hear people literally talking on Valley Drive if you go up the hill. It just amplifies. So it's not where we can just think about people with cars and conversation going in their cars and all the bells and whistles that cars make. It's not that normal noise. It's going to be amplified. So, and I think it would be an exercise in futility to say that the owners of this business could actually control that. And if they were able to, I mean, we have to look at long range. We can't look at short term. That's something that everyone has reservations about. And we do have a large responsibility to our residents up on that hill. They've already had problems with existing uses. And then we're going to add trucks loading, unloading at 5 a.m. And those are all the noises we know when trucks back up with the beeping sound. So I think that this is the right business in the wrong place. I don't think it's appropriate. 175 feet is very, very close. And they're having problems with noise across Valley Drive that they've had for 2 years, complaints because of increased usage. So I would encourage these business owners to maybe look elsewhere within Brisbane. I would hope you would still want to be in Brisbane, but I think this particular site is maybe one of the least appropriate because we have to think about the needs of our residents up that hill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment? Okay, then is there a motion that would like to make? Commissioner Gooding?
You're on mute again, Doug.
You think I would learn. I would move to deny the application of UP-8-20 on two different grounds. One, that I do not believe this commission can make findings under 17.40.060 that the uses would not be detrimental to the health, safety, and comfort of the persons residing nearby. And also on the grounds that section 17.19.060 precludes a night use permit within 300 feet of adjacent residential property.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Can we take a voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez? Commissioner Gomez?
Mute. Yeah, coming out double mute. Can I abstain my vote?
Point of order, Madam
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
I don't think we're allowed to abstain.
Then I vote no. Nay.
Okay.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Saison?
Aye. Motion passes 4-1. Okay, I will read the appeals process again. Anyone may appeal the action of the Planning Commission to the City Council, except where specified otherwise. Appeal shall be filed with the clerk not later than calendar days following the Planning Commission's decision. Exceptions to the 15-day filing period include the following. Appeal shall be filed with the city clerk within 6 calendar days of the commission's action, use permits and variances, and 10 calendar days for advertising signs. Okay, next item on the agenda is items initiated by staff.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Okay, now we're turned to items initiated by the commission. And we'll end on a good note. I have a proclamation honoring Colleen Mackin for her service as planning commissioner. So I will read the proclamation. This is a proclamation of the Planning Commission of the City of Brisbane honoring Colleen Mackin for her service as Planning Commissioner. Whereas Colleen Mackin was appointed as Planning Commissioner for the City of Brisbane in January 2017 for a 3-year term expiring in January 2020, which term was extended through December 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. And whereas Colleen has a tremendous commitment to public service, dedicating 4 years of service on the Complete Street Safety Committee before her nearly 4 years of service as Planning Commissioner, and will continue serving her community as an elected council member. And whereas Colleen's commitment to public service was evident in her thoughtful review of each project and her in-depth questioning of staff, applicants, and the public to establish the facts of each case. And whereas Colleen is fair-minded and open-minded, willing to hear from all sides, and has the humility and strength of character to change her own mind when the facts call out for it. And whereas Colleen unfailingly treats applicants and the public with courtesy and respect. And whereas Colleen is a true public servant, a person of strong ethics, willing to not only hold others accountable, but herself as well. And whereas while her presence on the commission will be deeply missed, the city as a whole will benefit from her continued public service as a council member. Now, therefore, it is proclaimed that the Planning Commission of the City of Brisbane thanks Colleen for her dedicated service and contributions to the community as a planning commissioner and wishes her success as Brisbane's newest city council member. Signed this date by me and on behalf of Commissioners Gooding, Gomez, and Patel. Yay!
Wow. Thank you very much. You would see me blushing if you had the right light. I really felt honored to serve with this whole group. You're really an incomparable group, and I'm talking about both staff and the commissioners, but I'm going to address the commissioners first. You know, you're very intuitive and you're inquisitive. I find that no matter what we have, you're very resolute to get to the root of everything. Over and over, you've shown you can be impartial, very respectful. That's really important on a good commission. You're very responsible in that you're tenacious to get to the goal of what you think is a fair ruling. You don't shy away from being accountable. And most of all, you have such boundless integrity. And I don't know if anyone, until you've served on this commission, realize how much work is really involved. I mean, honestly, I know that there are weeks that I've probably spent 18, 20 hours working on just research. And then there's visiting sites. So I just want the public to realize that. But from my own point of view, it's really been such a pleasure to work with all of you because we've established a very collegiate atmosphere. I enjoy hearing your comments. I enjoy hearing your thoughts. I look forward to these meetings just to see who is going to comment about what, because I look forward to somebody coming up with something I never thought of. And I just sit on the edge of my seat and I can't wait. And you never disappoint me. And that is something rare to find. Very, very rare, because it shows you're awake and you're thinking. And I don't know that a city could ask for more. And this really, watching planning commissioners for years, this is really an outstanding group. And I think cities should be pinching themselves just looking at the work that you've done. And to staff, you are such a pleasure to work with. You produce so many of the key details that we need on reports. You listen to our suggestions. That open-mindedness is really appreciated. You also seem to understand the collaborative nature of the work that we do. And you're very professional. To be such a small city and have such a high caliber professional staff, that also is, I think, a rarity. So I consider we are just so fortunate. And the hardest thing about running for council, where people were bugging me to run, is I kept putting it off because I could not imagine leaving the planning commission, quite honestly. I thought it'll just be such a loss because I have so enjoyed serving with all of you. And that honestly was the last thing I had to overcome, was leaving the planning commission to make a decision to run for the council. So you will always have a friend on the council. You will always have someone who appreciates your work. You can always contact me. Aside from being your fellow commissioner, I count each of you a friend, and the staff. And I'm not going far away. So I hope we can continue that relationship. But thank you very much. I really appreciate that resolution. That was unexpected. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So on that note, then may I have a motion for us to adjourn until 2021. 2020 will be over. January 14th,
be a better year.
2021.
Good riddance 2020.
For sure.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, let's take the voice vote.
Commissioner Gomez.
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding.
Aye, and Happy New Year.
Commissioner Patel.
Aye.
Commissioner Sayason.
Aye. Okay.
I thought we'd give Commissioner Mackin the last word.
My last vote. Aye.
Okay. Hey, meeting is adjourned. And see you all guys next year.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay,
Happy New Year, everyone.
Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye, Colleen.
Hi, Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen, for
Bye.
everything.
Thank
We'll
you,
luck.
all of you.
We'll see you. We'll see you.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll see you. I
See
promise.
you on another Thursday night.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, boy. Hope I go to the right meeting.
Well, and I'm pretty sure this is our longest running meeting. I think you went out on a high note.
Wow.
On a bang.
It was the biggest agenda you guys have tackled in a while too. So
Yeah.
we appreciate it.
Yeah, wow.
I know it was tough.
Yeah, it was a long one, but a good one.
We couldn't let
Very
you
good.
go on an easy,
No, I
Coasting.
did that. I took a look at that and went, oh boy.